Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto used Susanoo in Fairy Tail. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by MultiplyJupiter and link in the description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1. X782. In a land far, far away lies the kingdom of Fiori, a small peaceful nation of 17 million and a place filled with magic. Found in every home, bought and sold in every marketplace, for most, magic is merely a tool, a mundane part of everyday life. For some, however, magic is an art and they devoted their lives to its practice. These are the wizards. Banded together into magical guilds, they apply their skills in search of fame and fortune. Many such guilds dot the landscape of Fiori. But there is a certain guild in a certain town that soars high above the rest, one from which countless legends have been born, a guild that will no doubt continue to create legends well into the future. Its name is Fairy Tail. The Magic Council, ERA, the ones who kept order in the magic world at all times. They were the glue that held all wizard guilds together. There were 9 people standing on top of a large magic circle, while each individual person was standing on their own personal magic circle, discussing issues in the magic world as usual. Fairy Tail destroyed half of a town on their last job. They are getting out of hand, said Leiji. He is a tall middle-aged man who always wears small, round, dark-shaded glasses. He wears a white and blue Magic Council cloak, always with a hood up. Leiji has large thin lips and tan skin. He has black hair and huge sideburns that almost hid his lips. On his chin are small chin hairs. Leiji also has small eyebrows that always point down, making him look angry and serious. I personally like Fairy Tail, they certainly make the world a lot less boring, said Seagrain. He dressed himself in elegant yet simple robes, consisting of a long white frock coat with black stripes across the edges and on the upper part of the arms, a decorated standing collar, large straps connected to decorated buckles, closing the inducement on the front over a dark shirt, and matching pants and shoes. He also sported a ring on his right middle finger and had the medallion attesting his status as one of the 10 wizard saints around his neck, hidden by his jacket's collar. I have to agree, that guild is quite entertaining, said Altair, a very voluptuous woman with dark purple hair and red eyes. She was wearing a long revealing dress, sporting a striped pattern. Suddenly the earth started to rumble and a strange humanoid toad-like creature burst through door of the council room shouting, "Emergency! Emergency!" "What is it?" asked short frail-looking old man asked. This man was Ujima, who held the 6th chair in the council. There's been a detection of overwhelming energy in the south. The threat level is dragon, warned the amphibious humanoid employee of the Magic Council. The entire head of the council went into disarray. We must investigate it immediately. Send out the closest men, we have to investigate the source, the council chairman ordered. Everyone there was stricken with numerous thoughts and emotions began to flurry. It's probably that damn guild again. An elderly man who had various cat-like features. From pointy ears to a mustache that resembled whiskers to even being in possession of a tail. This man's name was Michello.no. There's no way that guild could produce the threat level of a dragon. I'll check the surveillance room and afterwards head towards the site, Seagrain said as his thought projection disappeared. Seagrain's real body was sitting behind a desk in what seemed like a small library. He walked out into the main lobby of the Magic Council and there were many of the same amphibian-like people running around in a panic. Geez, I wish they would calm down at least a little, Seagrain thought as he maintained his cool demeanor and walked through the lobby until he came to a door that was labeled surveillance. He opened the door and stepped through and was immediately greeted by a regular human. "Sir Seagrain, this way please," he said as he led the former to a table with a whole bunch of different tools of measurement on it. There was a huge digital map on the wall behind the table and a blinking red dot was present south of ERA, where the Magic Council was located. Each and every energy measuring device was completely maxed out. If the levels of energy they were detecting rose even the slightest, it would probably shatter those devices into a million pieces. "These readings are off the charts," Seagrain exclaimed. His eyes widened in horror from reading the values. Suddenly a warning siren started to go off in the room and the devices began to shatter one by one. What could that possibly be coming from? At the site of the energy source, there was a gigantic tower of searing sky blue light coming from within the mountain south of ERA. There was a small battalion of Rune Knights stationed near there, a head count of about 100 men. As they marched closer to the light source, the more and more pressure they began to feel on their knees. Some couldn't take it and just plain collapsed under the intensity of all that pressure. Not only dealing with the pressure of the energy, but the rumbling of the earth that was caused by it. Just what on earth could possibly be the source of this? The captain of the squadron asked in utter shock and awe. That tower of light caused the earth to rumble, and as they got closer to it, everyone's fears began to build up ever higher. Like bells ringing in a church, there were pangs in the heart of the captain. Then suddenly the Tower of Light began to expand, ripping apart the earth and destroying nearly everything that it touched. It consumed the soldiers, the ones who collapsed on the way there were the lucky ones. At this point it could be seen throughout the entire kingdom of Fiori. Every guild, every creature, everything stopped what they were doing and looked at the spectacle that was taking place. It was like a beacon, perhaps a warning symbol from the Magic Council. Some thought that two extremely powerful wizards were facing off in a battle to the death. Whatever it was, it definitely caught the attention of all those who were able. The light then began to recede to its epicenter, and the trembling subsided. All the knights that were there were all unconscious, and bodies were littered everywhere. All except the captain, though he was struggling just to stay conscious for the time being. He lay there on the cold hard ground, inside the massive crater. Something stuck out to him. There was an arm, a human arm. Then there were two arms that came out of the epicenter. The dirt began crumbling away as two people crawled out from beneath the earth. They were two men, one with blonde hair, wearing an orange coat, matching orange pants and a black headband tied around his head. The other one had dark hair, his black cloak had a high collar and some black sandals. Their clothes were tattered and their bodies dusty. The captain couldn't grasp a good look at their face before falling unconscious. "Oh man, what the heck happened to me?" the blonde one asked aloud as he stumbled a bit. Once the two were about to gather themselves, they scanned the area around them. They saw the bodies of the rune knights littered throughout the area like trash. "Hey, are you okay?" the blonde one called out, but no response was given to him. "Those clothes, they don't look like any from the 5 great nations," the raven-haired boy pointed out. None of them were moving, but they all showed signs of still being alive. "Still, what the hell happened here?" Naruto asked as he clutched his in pain. "Sasuke, we should go back to the village," Sasuke groaned as he held his head in pain as well. "I don't think that's possible right now," Sasuke said, his words trailing off just a bit. "What do you mean that's not possible?" Naruto asked. "There are people unconscious, in clothing we've never seen before. And the fact that geologically, we're not even in the same place we started," Sasuke explained, but Naruto still looked confused. He sighed and continued, "The latest memory I have was us setting foot inside of a temple in the forest, no mountains, and I'm sure your memory is similar to that," Sasuke said as he looked to see Naruto bobbing his head in agreement. "Look around you, this is clearly a mountainous region, and on top of that look at what we're standing in," Sasuke said loudly. Naruto took a serious look around this time. This reminded him of his battle with pain. There was nothing but a desolate wasteland for about a mile or so. The crater was also pretty deep too. Naruto was speechless about the situation. He looked once more at the several bodies spread across the area. He looked back at Sasuke, his eyes being covered by his hair. "We should probably get out of here," Sasuke suggested, and Naruto agreed. The two shinobi left the scene, heading northeast. Moving as fast as their stiff bodies could move. After a while of walking, they managed to leave that area entirely and enter an actual forest. The geography is similar, but these trees are slightly different than the ones that surround the hidden leaf, Sasuke pointed out, inspecting a fallen leaf as they stopped to take a break once they entered the forest. "If you're right and we are in some different place, where exactly are we?" Naruto asked. "Well, we won't find out just sitting around," he said as they got up and began moving once more. After a few hours of dragging their heels, they finally reached the outskirts of a town. It was a lively town, the market was bustling with people. There was so much chatter, Naruto and Sasuke could vaguely pick up on conversations from where they were. "This is definitely not the Leaf Village," Naruto said as they ventured deeper into town. They kept on hearing the same two words being mentioned over and over. "Fairy tale?" Naruto and Sasuke both thought as they looked at each other. Then Naruto went to go ask an old man who was selling these weird crystal balls. "Fairy tale? Oh, they're the wizard guild that occupy this town. They're a capable bunch, but they always go a little too overboard," the old man said. "Tell us more about these wizards and guilds," Sasuke said, and the elderly began to explain to them all the commonly known things about guilds and wizards. "If you two don't know about wizards or guilds, this is clearly your first time setting foot in this continent," he said. "That may very well be true," Sasuke said as he began to walk off. Naruto trailed behind him, thanking the old man for the information that they were given. "We should head to this fairy tale, they could have the information that we need," Sasuke said. They began heading towards the guild hall, which was located on the edge of the town. Certainly they had a few eyes fall upon them due to the state of their clothing, but that would only serve as a distraction right now. It only took them a few minutes to reach the guild hall. Naruto burst through the large wooden doors of the guild. Everyone stopped what they were doing and stared at the two that just burst in. It was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I need some help." Seagrain and a few other members of the Magic Council showed up to the site where Naruto and Sasuke came out of. They looked at the massive crater in the ground and were completely awestruck. Seagrain hopped into the crater and began walking to its center. He saw the rune knight scattered about like trash and didn't even pay them any attention. Medical attention will see to them soon. He said aloud to himself. After a short while of walking, he had finally reached the center. He saw the hole in the ground that Naruto and Sasuke came out of and he looked deeper into it. He noticed something shining within arm's reach inside of the hole. He got down to his knees and reached for the object. Grabbing hold of it, he pulled out his arm and inspected it. It was a shattered piece of crystal with a Japanese word written on it. 6. Seagrain thought. He looked back down into the hole to try and see if he could find any more pieces of shattered crystal. I'll have an archaeological team come and dig this site out later once everything's calmed down. Seagrain thought with a mischievous smirk as he pocketed the crystal. Chapter 2. Fairy Tail's New Additions. Well, my name is Makarov and I'm Fairy Tail's current master. What can I help you with? He asked. He's an extremely short elderly man was sitting there. He has black eyes and is growing bald with only the outer rims of his head containing white hair. He also has a thick white mustache. His outfit consists of a white shirt with a black fairy tale stamp in the middle, which was covered by an orange hoodie. His attire was completed with matching orange shorts and an orange and blue striped jester hat. Well, you see, my friend and I are lost and we have no idea where we are. So we were wondering if you could help us out. Naruto said and Makarov smiled. Sure, we can try to help you. Where do you need to go? Makarov asked. The Hidden Leaf Village. Naruto said and Makarov's happy expression shifted to one that was confused. The Hidden Leaf Village? I've never heard of such a place. Is that a new guild or something? Makarov said and Naruto was confused too. Really? You've never heard of the Hidden Leaf? Man, how are we going to get home now? Naruto asked, truly disappointed in the results of his question. I'm more or less just a wanderer. I don't live in the leaf. Sasuke said sarcastically. So what? You're just as lost as I am right now. Stop trying to be all cool. Besides, this is your fault. Naruto yelled and thus started the back and forth argument. These boys are definitely not from around here. Maybe they're from Idola's. Could they have been the cause of that pillar of light assisting from nowhere? Makarov thought as he closely inspected the two. Wait, the Hidden Leaf? I think I've heard that somewhere before, said Levi. She is a rather young, petite teenage girl of a slender build who stands at a rather below average height for her age. Her shoulder-length blue hair, which has eyebrow-length bangs, is tied up with a colorful bandana around her head. Really, you have? Naruto asked, his eyes lighting up like a Christmas tree. I'm sure I probably read about it in a book somewhere, but I don't know where it is. Levi said and Naruto's expression became disappointed again. I'll go down to the guild's library and search. Can I ask you two something? Makarov asked and they have him their attention and he took it as a sign to ask. A few hours ago, a beam of light appeared from nowhere in the southwest. Did you see it? Makarov asked. Beam of light? Sasuke questioned, furthering Makarov's suspicions. Well, the place you're looking for, I don't think you can go back there by normal means. Makarov said and Sasuke sighed deeply. I figured as much. Sasuke said. Wait, master, what do you mean by that? Said Urza, insert Urza character description. Unfortunately, their investigation of Naruto and Sasuke's home had to come to a halt. The doors of the guild hall opened up and 3 more people came into the guild. The Strauss siblings, who all had snow-white hair, consisted of 2 girls and 1 boy. Murahin was the oldest, who is a slim young woman of below average height. She has long, white hair which curls slightly at the ends, with 2 bangs framing her face and reaching down to her chest. Her hairstyle's most distinctive trait is a short upward ponytail, obtained by gathering and tying the hair covering her forehead. Elfman was a towering young man with tan skin and spiky white hair. He wore a navy blue uniform with purplish blue inners and a kanji on the back of the jacket that read the greatest. Lysandra was the youngest of the 3 and she is a young petite girl with short white hair and blue eyes. She wore a short dark red dress with a white collar and bow paired up with brown shoes. We're back home, guys. Did you miss us? Lysandra announced herself to the guild. Welcome home, Lysandra. Everyone shouted, welcoming Fairy Tail's little sister. I see the guild is as manly as ever. Said Elfman. I don't want to go on a job as long as that ever again. Murahin said as she let out a deep sigh. She looked over to the bar where Naruto and Sasuke were currently standing. She also noticed that the master was there too. She slid over to the master and whispered to him, who are these bums? Hey, who are you calling a bum? Naruto yelled, a tick mark developing on his temple. You, of course, just look at yourself. Murahin responded with an incredibly smug grin. Naruto inspected his body and just realized that his own clothes were messed up. I didn't even realize my clothes were so messed up. He screamed frantically, trying to cover up the parts of his exposed skin. Haha, reminds me of old droopy drawers over here. Said Natsu, a young man with pink hair and a scaly patterned scarf. "Who you calling droopy drawers, you pink-haired freak?" said Gray, a boy with raven hair, but he was wearing nothing but his underwear. "Gray, your clothes." The entire guild yelled as he also began frantically searching for his lost clothing. "Oh, by the way, Master, did you see that giant beam of light in the sky a little while ago?" Marahin asked. Makarov cleared his throat and said, "We were just talking about that before you came in. I think these two were the source of that light." Makarov said, and Marahin's eyes widened at his statement. She looked at Naruto and Sasuke, who were both just blankly staring at her. She paused for a moment before a smirk appeared on her face. "TFFFF, no way." She laughed, and this time they both became annoyed by what she did. "What's that supposed to mean?" Naruto questioned as she just laughed. "Well, the black-haired one maybe. But definitely not him." Marahin continued to insult Naruto much to his dismay. However, Urza came out and said, "You should know firsthand that you shouldn't judge a person's strength by the way they look. You might get hurt." Again. Urza taunted Marahin with a smirk, and the latter nearly had a vein pop out of her skull. "What did you say? You hermaphrodite?" Marahin spat. There was a heavy tension building in that area of the guild hall. "The temperature in here just dropped, wicked," Naruto said, and the two S-class female wizards began releasing their hostile magical aura towards one another. "Stop it right now." Makarov's voice boomed from his giant form. This tiny old man went from being a smurf to a beast within an instant. "Huge." Naruto and the rest of the guild shrieked, tossing their hands up in fear. Urza and Marahin bowed to Makarov, both apologizing for their actions. "Geez, we have people who need our help and you want to act like children," Makarov scolded as he began to shrink back down to his normal size. "You'll have to excuse them, I run a pretty hot-headed guild," Makarov said, and Naruto smiled from ear to ear. "We're the same way," he said, maintaining his smile the whole way through. Makarov smiled in return and asked, "Well, what are you going to do now?" Naruto paused for a moment. It was true, they were in an entirely different world right now and had no idea how things worked here, let alone how to get back home. "We're going to need more information if we want to go back to the elemental nations," Sasuke said. "Why don't you join our guild? We'll try our best to get you where you need to go." Makarov asked, and Naruto's eyes lit up like Christmas lights from his offer. "I'd love to." The entire guild started to cheer at the announcement of a brand new member. However, it got quiet again as everyone began to stare intently at Sasuke, who had remained silent for a while. He sighed and said, "Well, it's not like we have anything better to do." The guild erupted into cheers, and many people were going to look for a chance to find out more about the new recruits. Lysandra came to them with the guild mark stamp and asked them where they wanted their mark. "Right here in red," Naruto said as he pointed towards his bare right shoulder. Sasuke held up his left forearm and said, "Black." "Alright, let's party." Natsu yelled and the entire guild cheered. "Hold on, before we start partying, you guys need some new clothes," Makarov said as he pulled out his wallet and handed each of them two $1,000 bills. "This should be enough to get whatever you feel like," Makarov said. They bowed in appreciation, saying thanks before beginning to head out. "But wait, Master, you still never explained why they can't get home by normal means," Urza said. "If you want to know so badly, then go with them," Makarov said as he hopped behind the bar and poured himself a mug of liquor from the barrel. "Yes, sir," she said like a soldier receiving orders. "I'll go too. They'd probably get lost with Alrited over here leading the way," Marahin taunted. Urza just ignored the rude comment and proceeded to catch up to Naruto and Sasuke, who were already quite the distance away. "What do you think we should do first?" Naruto asked. "We let that blue-haired one finish searching for whatever clues she can get. If there's no leads, we'll just search ourselves," Sasuke said, and Naruto put his hand on his chin in contemplation. "If what the old man said is true, then people would look for us, wouldn't they?" "Not necessarily. When we came out of that hole, I didn't see any witnesses. All of those people were unconscious," Sasuke said. "At any rate, staying low is probably our best option. But the way they were acting, I don't know if that's possibly, you know." Naruto laughed as the two female wizards had caught up with them. "We've never officially met, my name is Urza Scarlet," she greeted politely, even adding a tiny bow in her greeting. "Sasuke-cha," he said in a monotone voice. He didn't even turn around to greet her, which made her feel a bit disrespected. She shook her head to clear out the negative qualms she started to feel about him. "A sword?" she thought when she noticed the sheath attached to Sasuke's hip. "So you're a swordsman too? I'd love to see how good you are," Urza said, and Sasuke looked over at her from the corner of his eye. "Chan, is that a challenge?" he asked. "That depends, if you're up for one," Urza smirked, luring him into her challenge. "Hey blondie, where you from?" Marahin asked. Naruto pointed to the leaf headband on his head and said, "The Hidden Leaf Village." Marahin looked downright puzzled from his statement. "Where the heck is that?" She asked and Naruto was about to answer, but then Makarov's words echoed in his head. I'm not sure if you can get back by normal means. Then his face was filled with sadness when he remembered. I'm not sure how to answer that, Naruto said in a low voice. Does it have to do with what the master said? Urza asked. It's as he said, we can't go home by normal means. I don't exactly know what happened, but we definitely can't go back as we are now. Sasuke explained as they stopped in front of a clothing store. Getting some new clothes myself doesn't sound too bad either. Urza said as she too entered the store. What the heck, I just got paid. Murahin said as she followed them inside. Is it possible to get this symbol stitched onto the back of this shirt? Sasuke asked the shopkeeper as he pointed towards the Uchiha crest on his back as he held a black long-sleeved high-collared shirt. Naruto had gotten a black uniform-style jacket with an orange zipper that features several buttons on the waist and sleeves, but what really caught his eye was a cloak that was just like the one his father wore as the fourth Hokage. It was white and had red flames adorning the bottom, but it was blank. He was definitely going to get it and have them stitch words on it. After the shopping trip, Naruto and Sasuke came out with their new outfits. Just imagine their Naruto. The last outfit, just with Naruto having a cloak like the fourth Hokage on, and instead of that raggedy hooded cloak Sasuke has, he has that black one like in the last chapter of the manga. I still have quite a bit of money left over. Sasuke said as he held one of the bills Makarov gave him and a 100 jewel bill. That feels so much better, Naruto said as he stretched in his newly bought clothing. Then a loud growl erupted from Naruto's stomach. I'm hungry, I feel like I haven't eaten anything in years. Naruto said as he dug into his pockets and pulled out several bills. 450 he counted. I don't think that's much. Hey, how much is it to get some ramen around here? Naruto asked. Ramen? I don't think I've ever seen a ramen shop in Magnolia. Urza said and Naruto slumped over, a depressing rain cloud loomed over his head. No ramen. I want to go home right now. Naruto sobbed as his stomach continued to growl louder and louder. Everyone around him sweat dropped at the blonde on his knees, pleading to whoever would listen for a bowl of ramen. What's the big deal about ramen? Murahin asked and in an instant, Naruto immediately grabbed the strings of her top as if trying to hoist her up. Still weeping in tears he said, are you kidding me? The succulent pork belly, sweet savory noodles, and the thick broth. It's the food of the gods. His mind wandered into unwavering bliss just from talking about his favorite food. Saliva was dripping down his chin, his mind overflowing in ramen ecstasy. However, he truly made a mistake that he would probably regret the rest of his life. The whole market had paused what they were doing and stared in silence. The townspeople's jaws nearly hit the floor. All of the men around had hearts in their eyes and drool dripping down their mouths. Urza covered her mouth, gasping in shock, and Sasuke pinched the bridge of his nose. Baka. This feeling I haven't felt it since I called Sakura-chan ugly. Naruto thought as he snapped back to the real world. A radiant murderous intent was being unleashed from the ivory-haired beauty. Naruto's eyes widened and he realized that he was still holding her top up. In his peripheral vision he saw two identical balls moving freely underneath his arms. Boing. Boing. He looked down and his jaw nearly dropped to the floor when he saw two unleashed white globes of flesh underneath his arms jiggling about. An atomic blush grazed his face before becoming incredibly pale and drenched in sweat. His whole life began to flash before his eyes as he remembered all the people who sacrificed themselves in order to help him achieve peace in the ninja world. Obito Nagato, Mom, Dad, looks like I'll be joining you soon. Life after the ninja war was great while it lasted. He thought as he accepted his fate. Silence, followed by a merciless beating and tremors that shook the market. Naruto drifted along the sewers of his mindscape towards the biggest friend he had ever made. The gigantic nine-tailed fox sat there, his tail swinging freely as he watched the morsel drift his way. Naruto held an emotionless expression as his body continued to drift along. So you've been beaten near death again, haven't you? Kurama asked and Naruto didn't even utter a single word as he just lay there in the water. His body stopped drifting when he came close to the nine-tailed fox, but he didn't even make any effort to stand. Kurama let out a hearty laugh watching the way his Jinchuriki behaved. Watching you get punished for being an idiot will always be amusing. Kurama laughed and Naruto just continued to lie there. The former's expression became a bit more serious when he noticed that the blonde didn't have a witty retort to say back. No response today? You're usually full of comebacks. Or are you too busy remembering getting a front row seat of that woman's meat bags? Kurama asked and this finally got a reaction out of the blonde. A pervy smile spread across his face with a slight red dust covering his cheeks. They were pretty nice, he said in bliss as his mind drifted off into a bouncy heaven. After a few seconds of daydreaming he snapped back to reality and sat up. He turned to his fox companion and asked, Oi, Kurama, do you know what happened to us? I was asleep the entire time, so I only know just as much as you. He answered and Naruto frowned. He leaned on his fist, trying to contemplate what exactly was going on with them. The best course of action is to probably find the biggest library and search it thoroughly. Kurama advised. We should tell Sasuke, I know he can come up with something to figure this out. Naruto said as he began walking away from Kurama. Oh, and do something about my injuries, will you? He asked and Kurama scoffed at him. Who am I? Your doctor. Naruto's physical body was currently being dragged back to the guild hall with numerous injuries to his face. Lumps, cuts, bruises, skull fractures, you name it, were present on the shinobi's head. Despite the beating, surprisingly no blood or dirt got onto his new clothes. Lucky for him. Murahin was giving the death glare to everyone as they walked by. If they even so much as glance at her in any way that she decides to be personal, it's game over. She crossed her arms over her breast, as if it would undo what Naruto had done by accident. Are you sure he's going to be okay? He hasn't moved for quite a while. Urza asked as she looked down on Naruto's prone body in the hands of Sasuke. It would take a lot more than that to kill this idiot. He answered and suddenly steam began to rise from the shinobi in question. They looked down at him and saw that all his wounds were starting to close up and lumps started to recede. Sasuke released one of his usual grunts and dropped Naruto to the ground with a smirk. Murahin turned around when she heard the thump and an irritated eyebrow gave rise. Boy team, you really didn't have to drop me like that. Naruto said as he dusted himself off. He looked ahead of him to see an irritated Murahin looking just about ready to take his head off again. Sweat began to drip down his brow as he hurriedly scurried behind Urza looking for protection. I'm sorry, please don't hurt me. Naruto pleaded as he clung to Urza's blue skirt. Sasuke hoisted him up by the collar of his cloak and he still put up his hands in defense, trying to prepare for the incoming beating. Murahin expressed her irritation with a tch before turning back around and continuing the walk back towards the guild. Hey, you better let go of there before you cause another incident. Sasuke warned as he put his friend back down. Were you that was close? I thought I was gonna die. Naruto sighed in relief as his normal goofy smile made its way back onto his face. How is it that you don't have a single scratch on you? Urza asked and Naruto patted Urza on the back and said. Don't worry about the small stuff. I'm still hungry. Do you think someone can make me ramen at the guild? He asked and marched towards the guild, making sure that he did not come too close to the ivory-haired reaper. Once they had returned to the guild, everyone was shaking in their books at the expression they saw Murahin return with. But they were also confused when they saw the other three. Wait, Mira is angry. But no one is covered in bruises. How is that possible? Was someone finally able to avoid her assault? I just hope she doesn't take her anger out on us. Several guild members murmured among themselves. However, they were quickly silent when the death glare was sent their way. They cowered in fear under the presence of the snow-haired woman. What the hell are you looking at? She hissed, making them scurry away even further. She grabbed Naruto by the collar of his cloak and hoisted him up. I swear if you tell anyone about what happened today, I'll kill you. Understand? She threatened the three of them. Once she released him from her grasp he immediately dropped to his knees and bowed. I'm sorry, I didn't meant to unveil your chest to the world. Naruto apologized and everyone's jaws dropped to the floor. Was that idiot even listening to what she just said? Everyone in guild screamed in horror. The same killing intent returned to Murahin's form and Kurama nearly suffocated from laughter inside of the boy's mindscape. I'm convinced he's a masochist. Urza said and an uncharacteristic chuckle erupted from Sasuke's mouth. He might actually die this time. I'm going to beat the memory out of you, Murahin said in a low voice as she cracked her knuckles. Incredibly loud, unmanly shrieks and the sounds of fist connecting with face echoed throughout all of Magnolia. One horrendous beating of an idiotic shinobi shifted into a full-scale brawl party, depending on how you look at it. Naruto just barely crawled out of the mess and groggily made his way to the counter. Ramen, I need ramen, Naruto begged as he reached for the bar stool with all his might. Lysanda had been working the bar for the day and she giggled at his actions. I don't know if I'm as good as Mirani, but I'll try. She said as went into the guild's kitchen. That psycho can actually cook. Sasuke said and Makarov, who was sitting on the bar counter, nodded his head. Despite her demeanor, she's actually really good at it. He answered as he took a swig of his beer. Levi approached the bar, wearing some red glasses and a scroll in her hand. Oh Levi, how'd it go? Makarov asked. Sorry, this was all I could find about your village. She said as she handed Sasuke the scroll. He thanked her as he opened up a scroll and read its contents. This is just a report on the amount of ninja tools currently in supply at the village. Sasuke said and Levi's expression became downcast. I'm sorry, that's all we have. She said in a regretful tone. Don't worry about it. I didn't expect to get a huge clue anyway. He said and her expression lightened up a bit. If there's anything else I can help with please let me know. Levi said and Sasuke nodded. Lisanna returned with a bowl of ramen and placed in front of Naruto, who finally managed to climb on the bar stool. I heard what happened with the search. There's all kind of places in Fiori that hold information. You can just search through there. Lisanna said before seeing an empty bowl in her face. Or please. Naruto asked and the ones around him screamed, already. Ramen sure does the body good. Naruto said as he patted his stomach, all of his newest injuries were already healed. A few more hours passed as night began to fall. Everyone exhausted their energies from fighting and their bodies were littered throughout the guild hall. Naruto had exhausted Lisanna from the endless amount of bowls of ramen that she had her make for him. Never feeding him ramen again, Lisanna said between pants as Naruto happily patted his overstuffed belly. Sasuke simply had some rice balls for his meal and was satisfied with that. Those two are like polar opposites, Makarov thought as he studied the two for as much as he could. Well, I've certainly picked up two interesting individuals. It's getting late. You two can sleep in the guild infirmary if you have nowhere to sleep. Makarov said as he turned into his giant form and yelled at everybody to go home. One by one everyone in the guild began leaving for the night. Bye-bye everyone. Naruto yelled, seeing them off with his usual grin. Well, at least until the Ivory Reaper returned its glare one last time before heading out the door. They entered the infirmary which looked like a normal hospital room, full of beds with white sheets, pillows and curtains. We need to start gathering information as soon as possible. Sasuke said as they began taking off their clothes to get ready for bed. Yeah, I want to go back to Ichiraku's as soon as possible. Naruto said. Is ramen all you think about? Naruto lied down in the bed and immediately frowned. Just as I thought. Hospital beds are always uncomfortable. Stop complaining and go to sleep. Remember to stay as low as possible, we don't want to have a run-in with the law in a land we know nothing about. Sasuke said, but all he got as a response was loud snoring. Ignoring the sudden urge to run a Chidori through his back, he followed the blonde's actions and turned in for the night. Chapter 3. Testing the waters. The entire guild gathered outside on the sandy shore that was behind the building. The sea breeze and the sound of the waves would have a calming effect on anyone. However, this wasn't exactly a moment to directly be calm. Natsu had challenged Naruto to a fight, although the latter had refused several times, Natsu bugged him every 2 seconds. So here they were, standing a few meters away from each other. Makarov walked between the two and his hand up in the air. The first one to render his opponent unable to battle wins. Are you ready? Makarov asked the two combatants, and they both nodded. I hope you're ready, cause I have no intention of holding back. Naruto said as shifted his neck from side to side, emitting loud cracking noises. I'm all fired up now. Natsu said, with a confident smirk. Boy Kurama, let's just intimidate him a bit. I don't wanna hurt him. Naruto said and Kurama chuckled. The old stare down trick huh? Haven't used that in a while. Kurama said as Naruto began to funnel a little bit of his friend's chakra into himself. Only enough to change his eyes from his normal blue color to blood red with black slit pupils. Makarov called for the match to start and Natsu didn't plan on wasting any time and immediately rushed Naruto with a flame-covered fist. Play Naruto need to be strong. When he got about 3 feet away from Naruto he suddenly felt discouraged. He looked into Naruto's eyes and completely froze. His slit red eyes were peering right into Natsu's black portals. The longer he stared, the more he felt like he wanted to back. Even some of the members of the guild who had weaker hearts began to backpedal away from the blonde. What a fearsome power this boy has. If he intensifies that energy even more, people around here are going to start fainting. Makarov thought in a panic. Makarov was about to order the people who were faint of heart to get away from the battle, but Natsu interrupted him. I'm not running away. My friends are right here with me. Natsu yelled and it snapped people out of their trance. Naruto stopped releasing his killer intent and smiled slightly. Not bad. Sasuke said, watching Natsu breath very heavily. His breath was hitched, he was drenched in sweat, he looked like he could collapse at any moment. What did Naruto do just now? Was it some kind of illusion? Urza asked. Sasuke shook his head in response and said, it was only intimidation. If his heart was as weak as them, he would have passed out already. He pointed towards Team Shadow Gear, who were some of the first to start backing away from Naruto. They were too stunned from his killer intent to even make a reply to his comment. Natsu screamed as he rushed Naruto again, his eyes seemed to have rolled into the back of his head. And asked. Old man, the match is over. Naruto said as he sidestepped Natsu's punch and gave him a quick chop to the neck, effectively knocking him out. Almost everyone in the guild was taken aback from what had just happened. This new guy, who didn't look any older than Natsu, just beat him without even trying. Natsu? A flying blue cat flew over to Hisei's fallen friend. Whoa, a cat that can talk. Naruto yelled as he stared at the flying feline. This cat's name is Happy. What did you do to him? Will he be okay? Happy asked, and Naruto smiled. Yeah, he should wake up in about 30 seconds or so. He was pretty much unconscious already before he even tried to hit me. He reassured Happy as he picked up Natsu and slung him over his shoulder. He walked back over to the rest of the guild and quite a few of the fodder members were avoiding him. What? I'm not going to hurt you or anything, Naruto sweat dropped. Maybe it's because they're looking into the eyes of a demon Kurama's side. Oh. Now was time for the main event. It wasn't every day that you heard the mighty Titania was going to have a duel. Heck, you never even heard of someone accepting a duel from Urza unless it was Murahan. Other than that, this was to be a day to remember. Sasuke and Urza was facing each other, standing only a few meters apart. The breeze blowing through her scarlet red hair and his cloak as black as darkness. The palpable tension in the air was so thick it could probably be cut with a butter knife. The new guy is going up against Urza on his second day. Gutsy move. Said a tall young woman with tan skin. She wears a light blue bikini top, a pair of capri pants, and her guild mark was located on the left side of her waist. This woman was Kana Alberona. Everybody place your bets here. Makarov called out, walking around with 2 buckets that had each of the contestants' names written on them. Of course, majority of the bets were placed on Urza, who had a reputation of being the strongest woman in fairy tale. Titania, she's the queen of the fairies. However, no one knew of Sasuke's reputation in the shinobi world to truly make a call. As Makarov made his way toward Naruto, who dropped all the remaining cash that he had from the previous day in Sasuke's bucket. What do you think will happen, Happy? Natsu asked his flying blue companion. Natsu, you're awake. Happy said ecstatically to see his best friend. How come you can fly and talk? Naruto asked in amazement as he watched a blue feline hover around like it's nobody's business. Because I'm a cat and my name's Happy. He introduced and Naruto was completely enticed by the feline. I see, it does make sense now. No it doesn't. Shouted the guild members who were overhearing the conversation. I have something I need to do, so I'll make this quick. Sasuke said as he drew his sword and pointed it towards his adversary. Urza held out her right hand and a sword appeared from nowhere. You're quite confident, aren't you? Urza asked. Sasuke remained silent, simply waiting for Makarov to call the match into motion. Makarov set down the 2 buckets and walked towards the midpoint of the 2 combatants. Are you ready? He asked and neither of them said a word to each other. All the spectators were watching intently, eager to know exactly what this guy could do. The majority of the guild placed their money on Urza, showing that they had confidence in her ability to win. The breeze blew one last time, and the very moment it stopped, Makarov called the match to start. The redhead wasted no time in rushing her opponent. Sasuke quickly shifted his sword into a reverse grip and parried the attack. Since he was physically stronger than Urza, she was knocked back about a foot or so. I'll give you 10 seconds, starting now. If you don't come at me with the intent to kill. You cannot beat me. Sasuke warned and Urza smirked. I'm not as foolish as to give in to a ploy like that. She responded as used her magic to bring a second sword into this realm. She rushed him once more and Sasuke dodged and parried every blow she tried to land gracefully. In 10 seconds. He's gotta be joking. Gray thought. He knew Urza for a long time, so he knew her strength very well. Even if she could be defeated, there's no way it could end that quickly. Clang. Clang. DCCCHHH. Clang. The sound of metal clashing echoed through the air as the 2 continued their bout. Urza frowned as she tried desperately to land at least one good hit on Sasuke, but was failing. I don't get it. 5 seconds have already passed and he hasn't tried to hit me even once. She thought as the time ticked. You would think she should be glad that he hadn't once made a true offensive move yet during the entire bout. However, your focus should always be on your opponent because 1 second can be the difference between life and death in battle. 4. Urza had managed to corner him against a large boulder. She lunged the sword that was in her left hand at his face, but he moved his head to the side, barely dodging it. But in that same moment with her right hand, she aimed for his midsection and she was sure she had him. However, Sasuke lifted his left leg and stopped the blow by stomping his foot right on her hand to halt the momentum. Using that to his advantage, he used that same foot to make her right arm cross over to the left and slip through the small gap that opened up. He made his first offensive move by immediately turning and making an attempt at her scalp. She barely moved out of the way as the blade caught some of her beautiful scarlet red hair. Once Sasuke realized that he missed, he immediately gained some distance between himself and Urza. 3. Urza was in shock when she saw several strands of her hair fall right before her eyes. She looked over to Sasuke, who was pretty much back in the same position they started in. His cold black eyes peered right into her very being. Now she was feeling the pressure. She didn't know what he was going to, but after that swordsmanship he just displayed, it may not have been a bluff after all. There's 2 seconds left. After regaining her composure, she rushed right back into battle. But this time as soon as she attempted to strike, he didn't just parry the blow. He knocked the sword clean out of her right with a well-placed strike. 1. Urza was definitely caught by surprise from the sudden change of Sasuke's actions in the battle. The tide of the battle changed in less than a second. Urza watched her sword get embedded into the ground. However, once her eyes returned to what her target was, it was already too late. Sasuke was already several feet behind her with his back turned. Zero, Sasuke said as sheathed his sword. And once he did, all of Urza's armor fell off of her in pieces. Her black undershirt, her blue skirt was ripped to shreds, leaving a nearly naked Urza. The only thing saving her from a birthday suit presentation was the lacy black underwear that she had worn that day. On top of that, several wounds appeared on her body and began leaking blood. The wounds weren't life-threatening, however they were deep enough to make it difficult to stand up on her own right away. Makarov was about to declare Sasuke the winner, but Urza stabbed her sword into the ground and attempted to stand back up. Hold on, I'm not finished yet, she declared as she began to stand back up. Stand up as much as you want. The way you are now, you will never beat me. Sasuke said as he turned to face her. Her eyes were full of determination, but also she had an angry glare to her. He walked over to her and stood over her as she attempted to stand herself up. You have the same eyes as I once had. Sasuke said, and she had a puzzled look on her face. She stayed silent as she continued to stare him down. She stared into his eyes as they suddenly changed. His right eye became red and hard, 3 circling tama within it. The other became purple with several rings surrounding the iris and also several tama along the rings. Urza's eyes widened when she saw the change but suddenly became unconscious and lost in a dream world. No way, he really beat Urza in 10 seconds. Happy exclaimed. The rest of the guild had their jaws on the floor. The mighty Titania has fallen. No one ever thought that those words would ever cross her mind. The new guy ain't half bad. Marahin said as she watched the red head collapse to her knees. To deliver 13 blows in that instant, that's no ordinary kid. Makarov thought as he eyed Sasuke. Well, if it was a life or death battle, I'm sure that the battle would have lasted much longer. I mean, Urza's strong, right? If her life depended on it, she surely would have lasted longer. Said Loke, a boy with orange hair, glasses, a green coat and dark pants. No, Naruto said, getting the attention of every spectator who was present. If this was life or death, the battle would have ended 9 seconds earlier. He continued, and at this point, everyone's jaws were already on their way towards the center of the earth. Everyone shifted their eyes towards the shinobi in question. His black cloak swung back and forth in the wind. Then everyone stared at the downed red head, her blood dripping from her form. However, Natsu and Happy's eyes remained on Sasuke, and stars immediately replaced their eyeballs. So cool, they both shouted with wide smiles on their faces, however that smile quickly disappeared when Marahin punched both of them on the back of the head. Shut up. It's a good thing I called Perusuka to come here before this started. Makarov said aloud to himself as most of the guild ran over to Urza to help her up. Boy Sasuke, don't you think that was a little much? Naruto asked. The challenge was to render your opponent unable to fight. And I did just that. He replied coolly. Geez, you still didn't have to use Shinjutsu on her. Naruto responded as he walked over to Levi to ask her where the library in town was. Meanwhile, Gray was frozen in place. He was in complete shock after watching Urza get defeated so easily. His world became silent, the only thing he could hear was the footsteps of the shinobi donning black. TSS, TSS, TSS. The sound of Sasuke's footsteps grinded on Gray's ears. Time seemed to move slow for the ice wizard, and once Sasuke was next to him, his heart skipped a beat. He gulped and a bead of sweat dripped down his brow. It felt as if a ghost had walked by him just now, as if Sasuke didn't even recognize that he was standing there. What was the just now? He thought as he looked over his shoulder, watching Sasuke leave the scene as time seemed to finally return to its normal flow. Break. Naruto and Sasuke were currently at the library, searching for any clues on where exactly they were and how they could get back to the elemental nations. Magnolia's library wasn't exactly meant for wizard research, but there was a section just for them. Transformation magic for dummies. Naruto looked at the book, frowned at the book and tossed aside. Then he took up another one, it was red covered, its title was, Fire Magic for Dummies. He tossed that one aside too. He searched and searched and searched, but every book he came across was titled for dummies. Why do I keep coming across these books for dummies? Naruto yelled in frustration as he continued to empty the shelves that stood in front of him. Maybe it's because you're in the dummy section. Idiot. Sasuke said, and the book suddenly stopped flying. Naruto looked up and his friend was right. There was a small sign that read dummy right above him. Ooh, oh, I wish I had saw that earlier. Naruto said as he moved over to the advanced magic section and was just about to begin his search again. Put the books back first, moron. Sasuke ordered, and Naruto looked back at him with a frown. "You know there's a nicer way to tell people things," he replied as he formed the hand sign for his famous jutsu. He created 2 clones and had them do that work for him. After about an hour of searching through books, Sasuke finally came upon a book that could be beneficial to them. The Theory of Dimensional Travel. Sasuke opened the book and began reading its contents. In order to get through the book and learn as quickly as possible, he put on a pair of red-winged glasses that he had gotten from Levi. Suddenly it seemed as though all the words were being read to him as fast as lightning. Amazing. It's like having a Sharingan for reading. He thought as he zoomed through the pages of the book. Taking in so much knowledge about the dimension traveling and different theories of what dimensions are. Even though he was able to collect so much information, he frowned. Not because it didn't contain anything useful, rather it was too much information. Once the magic glasses finished feeding him the information of the book, he closed it and set it on the table. It just made it even more complicated. Sasuke sighed as he looked over to what Naruto was doing. He saw that Naruto had a book in his hand that the boy seemed to take interest in. "Boy Sasuke, look at this," Naruto said, and the former got up and walked over to him. He was holding a book with a rather simple but unique cover. All it had was a red moon covered partially by several clouds. It was an extremely slim book. It felt as though it only had about 10 pages in it. Though it was in rough condition. The Apocalyptic Moon. Sasuke read the title out loud and Naruto proceeded to open the book. It was a picture book and the very first picture they saw immediately caused their eyes to widen. It was a picture of one single tree in an open field, but the grass was stained with blood. And the moon was the same as the cover of the book. The moon shone a blood red. They couldn't help but remember the horrible time they had fighting in the war. One night, the moon turned red as if it was stained with blood, read the first page. Naruto turned to the next page, but it was blank. He ventured through more pages and all of them were blank up until the very end. Why are all of the pages blank? Naruto asked, and Sasuke activated his Sharingan to check for any hidden messages or symbols that his Sharingan could pick up. He took the book from Naruto and scanned the first page. His hunch was correct. There was a very intricate and complicated design on each one of the pages. "There's some kind of symbol on each page and they all look like numbers," he said. There were 12 pages excluding the first one. "That book is very mysterious," a voice said from behind the pair of shinobi. It was the librarian. He was a rather elderly looking man, but he was tall. He wore a full black suit complemented with a red tie and handkerchief. "There are only about 7 copies of that book, but all of them are exactly the same as you see them now," he said, and they turned to face this man. "The author of this book is Roku Shadame," he said. "Roku Shadame?" Naruto inquired, looking puzzled. "Roku Shadame as in the first 6. Or the first sage of 6 paths," Sasuke pondered. He decided that they would have to go back to the place that they came from in order to find out more. The librarian said that he didn't know who the man was or even why this book was written. A long time ago, the book was placed in front of the doorstep of several different libraries across the continent. "We've asked for help from the wizard guilds, but so far no one has been able to solve the mystery," he explained. The two thought about it for a moment, both thinking that this book may have something to do with them being in this world. "Can we take the book? I believe we can solve this mystery," Sasuke asked, and librarian nodded. "I can only give you the book if you're a guild wizard though," he said, and Sasuke rolled up his sleeve and uncovered part of the bandages on his arm and showed him the black fairy tale symbol that he had put there. Likewise, Naruto slid the clothing on his right shoulder down to show his red mark. "Oh, you two are from Fairy Tail. You must be new recruits because I don't think I've seen you before. We just joined yesterday actually," Naruto said, his usual grin plastered on his face. The old man smiled and told them to take the book. "If you want to get paid, tell your master that you accepted the job request," he said as he waved goodbye to the 2 young men who moseyed along back to their guild. At the guild hall. Urza came out of the infirmary all bandaged up by Purusuka. The wounds were nothing serious, but the genjutsu that Sasuke put on her was what really made her collapse. Once she stepped out, the entire guild became silent. She noticed that everyone had their eyes glued to her and asked, "Why are you all staring at me like you've seen a ghost?" "They're all just worried about you, that's all. However, those 2 over there are a different case," Makarov said while sipping on a cup of beer. He made a gesture over to his left side and she saw Natsu and Gray sitting at a table in complete silence. Both of them looked like they were thinking really hard about something. In Gray's case, he was trying to figure out exactly what he felt when Sasuke had walked past him earlier. He felt some sort of connection to him, but he couldn't exactly figure out why he did. He had never met this guy before, he was sure of that. If he met someone who was as strong as he was, there's no way that he would have forgotten. "This feeling, I kind of remember something similar when I first met Natsu. But definitely not as extreme." Meanwhile with Natsu, he was actually thinking about his fight with Naruto and how it ended so pitifully. He wondered if there were other strong guys like him and Gilderts in the world. What if they became enemies of Fairy Tail? He would have to become stronger if he was to protect the people he cared about. Alright, I've decided. Natsu spoke up, gaining the attention of all the other members of the guild. He even snapped Gray out of his thoughts. That guy's gonna train me. Natsu declared. The guild gave their best fish impression when they heard his declaration. That's not something you can decide. They yelled and Natsu just stood there picking his ears out for wax. Then a loud grumble was heard and Natsu was instantly at the bar with a fork and knife. Can I get some food please, Lisanna? He asked. Don't change the subject. Urza smiled as she too walked over to the bar and asked for a drink of water. The words that Sasuke said to her right before she became unconscious. You have the same eyes as I once had. She couldn't understand what he meant by that. His eyes changed into two different eyes at one point. She couldn't do that, so how could she have the same eyes as him? Was it an ability that she would gain later on? Or was it the way that she viewed the world? She decided that she would ask him once he returned to the guild. Still, those new guys certainly shook up the guild for their first time being here. Makarov said, taking another swing of his beverage. Say master, do you think this meeting was just by chance? Urza asked as Lisanna placed the glass in front of her. Makarov chuckled and said. That's something we'll see as time passes. Naruto and Sasuke made their way over to the crater that they came out of yesterday. The area was crawling rune knights of the Magic Council. There were tents everywhere, indicating that these knights would be living here at least until the investigation was over. I figured we wouldn't be able to just come back here so easily. Sasuke said. So how do we investigate without people noticing? Naruto asked. Just follow my lead. Sasuke then transformed into a regular carpenter outfit but still maintained his normal face and hair. Naruto followed his lead and did the same thing. They walked over to the dig site and were immediately stopped by a rune knight named Leiher that was keeping watch. Leiher is a slim man of average height with long, tied-up black hair, two bangs frame his face, and an unruly tuft covers his forehead, though his lavender eyes are still visible behind his circular lens glasses. We're construction workers that were sent here to help out at this dig site. Sasuke answered and the guards relaxed a little. Ah, you must be the ones that were sent by Lord Seagrain. Right this way please. Leiher and his partner stepped aside and escorted the two towards the center of the massive crater. There were many people digging, but the site that was peculiar to them. They were blocking off a small area and no one could cross that line. Upon further inspection, they realized that it was the holes that they had come out of. Hey, why is that one part of the dig site blocked off? Naruto asked. That's something Lord Seagrain said he'd take care of personally. Even we don't know why, Leiher answered. As they continued walking, they met up with another rune knight. When Tether Knight turned around to greet them, his eyes widened. Why, you're the ones I saw come out of that hole over there. He accused as he pointed at Naruto. Wait, are you sure? Leiher asked and guard nodded furiously. Excuse me, but I'm afraid I have to take you to headquarters to ask you a few questions. Leiher said. Hold on, what for? Naruto demanded. There was eyewitness account at the time of the explosion's aftermath saying there was a blonde teenager with 3 whiskers on his face and a boy whose hair resembled the tail of a chicken. Leiher read off of a piece of documentation that he had with him and Naruto burst out laughing. See, I always told you your hair looks like a chicken's butt. Shut up. Onk. Chapter 4. Naruto and Sasuke's first job. Destroy Ghoul's spirit. It's been 3 whole days. What the heck happened to those guys? Natsu shouted in frustration. Maybe they found a way back home already and never bothered to come say goodbye, Happy said in a disappointing tone. It is rather strange, I thought it was just a simple trip to the library. Urza mused. Then suddenly Jet and Droy burst in through the door of the guild hall with newspapers in their hands screaming, big news. Everyone nearly broke their necks with how fast they turned towards the two. Let me see that. Makarov ordered and Jet tossed the newspaper to him. He read and instantly eyes widened, a bead of sweat dripped down his face. But how? Just a few days ago, a massive pillar of light appeared on the southwestern part of Fiori, causing a massive worry across the continent. Seagrain of the Magic Council said this, citizens of Fiori need not to worry anymore. The Magic Council has swiftly and decisively handled the problem at hand. Naruto Uzumaki and Sasuke Uchiha, 2 people who recently joined the Fairy Tail Guild, were the cause of that light appearing. As to whether or not they are still a threat to the continent, the Magic Council had refused to disclose that information to the public. As of now, they are in custody in the Magic Council until further notice. The article read, and there was a photo of Naruto and Sasuke being held in handcuffs and taken away by rune knights. Gramps, if that's the case then we have to go over there right now. Natsu yelled, and just before anyone had a chance to say anything to Natsu, the doors burst open again. Mr. Makarov, master of the Fairy Tail Guild, the Magic Council, has called for an immediate summoning of your presence. said an anthropomorphic toad dressed in the uniform of the Magic Council. Makarov grunted at the order because he knew exactly what it was about. "It's about my new kids, huh? Guess there's no way around it," he said as he hopped off the stool he was sitting on and quietly went along with the council escort. "Thank you for your cooperation," it answered. "Hold on, I'm going too," Natsu said, Gray also stepping forward to be a part of this expedition to the Magic Council's headquarters. "No. You don't know how to keep your cool. Mira, you come since Urza is still recovering," Makarov ordered and Natsu tried to argue until he felt a hand on his shoulder. "But how come the Ice Princess gets to go and not me?" Natsu whined and Gray immediately reacted to his insult and began butting heads with him. "What did you call me, Dragon Boy?" Gray snarled and they began spewing insults back and forth towards each other. These insults were suppressed immediately once the one who maintained all the order inside of Fairy Tail interfered. "Ooh, you two are going to cause trouble for our master right here in front of the council." Urza intervened in the middle of their shouting contest. They both immediately bowed in repentance and said, "No ma'am. These two are the only escorts you may take with you. Now let us be off, neither of us have much time to waste." The guild watched as Makarov, Marahin and Gray left with the council. Immediately there were theories on what could have happened to them to make themselves get caught. Maybe they destroyed something and the council caught them. Maybe they got arrested for being a man. Who could get arrested for that? Either way, since they're in our guild now, the council is bound to keep even more of a watch on us since they're the cause of that incident a few days ago. That means everybody must be on their best behavior. Urza warned, giving the guild her classic death stare in which they whimpered in response. 2 hours later, ERA. After the long and quiet carriage ride, they finally reached the ERA, the Magic Council's headquarters. After going through a quick security check, they trekked the long hallways towards the interrogation room where the officer escorting them said Naruto and Sasuke were being held. When they came into the room, what they saw was certainly unexpected. Naruto and Sasuke were sitting opposite ends of a small square table. Big enough for about 4 people. There were a bunch of empty cups of instant ramen about the place, along with several rice grains strewn across the table and floor. Both of them had their heads down on the table, unmoving as if they died in that very spot. The guard who was keeping watch at the time walked over to him and banged his staff on the table several times. "Get up. Now," he ordered and groans erupted from the table as they both began to lift their heads up. "Huh, is it morning already?" Naruto said, a bit of drool hanging from the corner of his mouth. His vision was blurred for a moment, but when he wiped his eyes, he began to sob tears of joy. Sasuke woke up with half-lidded eyes and a grain of rice clinging to the corner of his lip. "Eyes help me," Naruto begged as he stumbled his way over to Makarov and his escorts. "You guys look pathetic. What were they doing to you?" Marahin asked as Naruto sobbed on her skirt. She calmly kicked him off of her. "Just what the heck has been going on here?" Makarov demanded of the soldier. "We assure Mr. Makarov, we haven't done anything inhuman to them. We only asked them a few questions and ran some tests." "A few questions?" Sasuke mumbled as he glared at the guard. 3 days was certainly a long time to just ask questions. "It was horrible, they kept asking us the same things over and over again. They ran several blood tests, several tests on something called the MPF. Ugh, it was just bad," Naruto complained. "Well, you didn't even exist in this world until a few days ago," Marahin said matter-of-factly as she helped him to his feet. "It's time for you to leave, the heads of the council would like to speak with you 3 before you leave." "Oh, so more questions then?" Sasuke asked sarcastically. "Haha, when did you get a sense of humor?" Naruto asked and Sasuke ignored him as he walked over to the coat hanger in the room and grabbed his cloak. The guards had put handcuffs on the 2 shinobi. They glared at the one putting them on and he said, "It's government policy." Naruto bobbed his head from side to side in a mocking fashion and said in a mock the guard's monotone voice like a child, "It's government policy," earning a giggle out of Marahin. They walked through the long hallways of the council until they came upon gigantic important looking doors. Any fool could see that this lead to the leaders of the Magic Council. Leiher was standing in front of the doors and said to the group. "They've been expecting you," Leiher said as he opened the door and motioned for the group to go in. Once Naruto, Sasuke and Makarov had gone in, Leiher stopped Gray and Marahin from entering. "Hey, what's the big idea?" Marahin asked, looking straight into his stoic face. "Sorry, you'll have to wait here until they are done speaking. I cannot allow you to pass," he answered and she growled at him. Gray told her to calm down and that they wouldn't be in there for long. She responded with a tch and just sat over at a bench that was outside the room. The fairy tale wizards were face to face with the 9 members of the council. Sasuke scanned all 9 of them really quickly as soon as he entered the room. "Seems like a pretty normal council to me. Except for those 2. He thought as his eyes fell on Seagrain and Altair. Something about them seemed off to them, like they simply didn't belong on that platform. "So what are we here for?" Naruto asked. "You two are responsible for a mile worth of damage to the land, and you ask why you are here?" the old blonde lady asked. "According to the research conducted on the two of you, the discovery of your existence occurred can be assumed to be at the same time as that beam of light that suddenly appeared. You two also said that you came here just a few days ago and did not see a beam of light. You joined Fairy Tail on the same day that you appeared in this world. You have no knowledge of magic and do not even know how the order of the magic world is kept. Is all of this information correct?" Altia read off of a piece of paper that she had in front of her and the two of them nodded. "Makarov, I leave these two under your responsibility. Should they cause any trouble, you shall be held responsible. Under normal circumstances, we wouldn't let people capable of producing a dragon-level security alert roam free. However, since they were so cooperative during this investigation, we came to a conclusion that they are no threat to the safety of the magic world. And I hope that you hold up your end of the bargain. However, at any time you fail to follow the order of the council, you will be incarcerated immediately and without fail. You will be under constant surveillance, there is nothing that you will be able to hide. The order of the magic world is at stake here. Do you understand me?" The chairman of the council concluded his little speech. The ones he directed it to followed up with a "yes sir." "Good, now I have a job for you to do. Normally we don't allow warring between two guilds. However, I'll let it be, just this once." "Ghoul Spirit. Who are they?" Sasuke asked, and Murahin gave them a brief explanation on how the order of the magic community is kept. From legal guilds, dark guilds, to independent guilds, to ERA, and finally Fiori's government. "I didn't know dark guilds existed. If it's bad having them around, why is it against the law to destroy them?" Naruto questioned. "It's because of the Barum Alliance," Makarov said. "It's an alliance of many dark guilds that work directly under the three strongest dark guilds in the world, Oration Says, Grimoire Heart, and Tartarus," Gray explained. "Well, they're dark guilds so it's more like a non-aggression pact," Makarov commented. The group headed toward Shiratsum, the town that Ghoul Spirit was occupying. Apparently, Shiratsum was the town that the chairman grew up in and hated the fact that a dark guild was currently occupying it. However, he gave them a strict order not to kill any of the members of Ghoul Spirit, just capture them. "Alright, let's make this quick, I want to go home," Sasuke said. "Even though we don't have a home to go to?" Yo-ho-ho-ho-ho. Homeless joke. Naruto laughed and immediately had lumps grow on his head from the wax he got. "Who do you think you are?" everyone yelled. "I'm sorry." After about an hour later they arrived to Shiratsum. They went into town and immediately gathered information on the Dark Guild's whereabouts. When they asked around, a lot of people cowered in fear, wanting to keep their mouths shut. "Wow, they really have this town under their thumbs." Naruto commented on the behavior of the citizens in the town. "Yeah, no wonder the chairman asked us to free this town," Gray said as another person locked their store in fear. If you want to find Ghoul Spirit, their guild hall is on the top of that hill," a very nervous young woman said to them. "Just what have they been doing to you guys?" Makarov asked, and the woman began to explain how Ghoul Spirit had terrorized them for the past few months. They would tax them heavily, and anyone who didn't obey them would be killed just to set an example for everyone else. It was a horrible story, and that's why everyone lives in fear of that guild. "We don't use magic, so there's no way for us to defend ourselves. We asked the guilds for help, but no one ever came," she said, and tears began to well up in her eyes. "Well, we're from the Fairy Tail Guild, and we're gonna rid this town of Ghoul Spirit for good," Naruto declared, and woman looked up to him. Seeing the sure look on his face, she just nodded silently. "Alright, let's go," Makarov said as they made their way up the hill. One ass kicking later. "Wow, they were all pretty weak," Naruto said as he tossed another unconscious body to the side. "It's nice that you guys defeated them and all, but how are we going to deliver them to the council?" Gray asked, and a light bulb lit up in Naruto's head. He walked over to Sasuke and whispered his idea in his ear. "Seriously? That's not a bad idea," Sasuke responded to his whispers. "Alright, everybody stand back," Naruto warned as Sasuke's eyes changed to his Rinne Sharingan. Everyone did as they were told and watched Sasuke carefully. He balled up his fist and slowly opened it, revealing a small black orb. The orb went to hover over the littered bodies of Ghoul Spirit. "Kibaku Tensei," Sasuke said, and the ground immediately began to be pulled from the rest of the earth and flew towards the orb. This continued for about 5 minutes until a complete satellite was created, trapping all of the Dark Guild inside of it. Sasuke dusted his hands off and said. "Alright, done and done." "Emergency," the anthropomorphic frog shouted as it burst into the council room. "What is it this time?" the chairman asked. "There's a huge meteor headed this way." The council members gasped in shock and they immediately all ran outside. When they got there, they were all incredibly shocked. It was true, there was a giant meteor headed their way. But the most shocking thing was the fairy tale symbol made out of ice embedded into the meteor. The meteor slowly came towards them and descended onto the ground. Slowly and carefully as to not cause any destruction of any harm to whoever was there. Once it landed, there was a slight tremor from the sheer weight of the boulder. Seagrain made a move first and got close to the meteor. But once he did, it began to crumble before him. Next thing you knew, there was dust, small rocks and giant stones falling from the creation. There lay the unconscious bodies of the dark ghoul spirit amongst the debris. That certainly is one way to deliver something. Altair giggled. The rest of the council, excluding Yujima and Seagrain, all looked like they had seen a ghost. Just how in the world were they able to do that? Michello questioned. The entire magic world just got interesting. Seagrain chuckled as he watched the Rune Knights go to detain the fallen members of Ghoul Spirit. I don't even think it's been 3 hours since they left yet. Altair giggled, meanwhile the rest of the council members just had their mouth agape. Did we just release weapons of mass destruction into the magic world? The old woman asked and Yujima had an amused smile on his face. I don't know, they seemed like pretty nice kids. Yujima said with a smile. Naruto sure does. But the other one didn't seem too friendly. When push comes to shove, he'll probably be the most troublesome to deal with. Altair said in low volume so that only Seagrain could hear. The latter only smiled mischievously in response. Is that really the best that these dark guilds can do? How disappointing. Sasuke sighed as the group was forced to walk back to the guild due to creating mass panic amongst the people of Shiratsum. It's not every day that you see someone able to create meteors and send them flying over your town. I just wish the townspeople could have at least thanked us for ridding them of ghoul spirit. Naruto grumbled and his stomach followed suit. Geez, I'm hungry. To be fair, you turned nearly the entire hill into a meteor. Gray sweat dropped and his stomach began to growl too. Yeah, it's also your fault why we can't take the train, you meathead. Murahin said and Naruto sweat dropped. Flashback. Naruto had used one of his mini Rasen shuriken to try and take out as many ghoul spirit members as possible. Unfortunately, a very distracting memory just decided to make its way into his brain at the time and the trajectory of his attack shifted. He missed completely and the chakra shuriken zoomed past everyone and right towards the train tracks. After it exploded, there was now a large gap in the railroad now. Oops. Then flashback. Yeah, well, he paused when everyone's stomachs growled collectively. I'm so gonna try to teach myself Hiraishin while I'm here. Naruto thought as they all continued to drag their feet back towards Magnolia. Gray had his eyes set on Sasuke. After watching the Uchiha in action, even if it was against a bunch of fodder wizards, he knew he was very strong. Probably even stronger than the old man himself. As much as he didn't like to say it, he had to follow Natsu's footsteps on this one. I'm gonna make him accept me as his student. He declared in his thoughts. He wanted to get stronger, that's for sure, but he also wanted to find out what exactly made him so drawn to Sasuke. He was still trying to figure out whether or not he had met Sasuke before, but he couldn't put his finger on it at all. Makarov was in his own thoughts as well, trying to assess the 2 new kids he picked up to be in his guild. The way they acted with each other, it seemed like they were just an older version of Natsu and Gray. Well, with the way they went overboard in the destruction of Ghoul Spirit, they're definitely an older version of Natsu and Gray. I have to write enough apology letters just because of Natsu and Gray alone. I really hope they're more well-behaved than those 2 boneheads. The blonde one's already gotten on my nerves, but he's kind of funny. The other one embarrassed the redhead, so he's instantly in my approval book. They're interesting to say the least. About 3 hours later. The group of 5 finally returned to the guild hall after a long walk from Shiratsum to Magnolia. Everyone surrounded them trying to fish answers out of them for being away for so long after only going to the library. They explained that they went back to the place where they came out of and was instantly caught by the council. Everyone murmured about how only idiots would return to the scene of the crime in the middle of the day during an investigation. To be honest, it wasn't one of my best ideas. Naruto said as he already sat at the counter awaiting a bowl of ramen from Lasana. I agreed with him, his stupidity is starting to rub off on me, Sasuke said as he rubbed his temple. What was that, team? Naruto questioned, and the 2 began butting heads in the same way that Natsu and Gray would. Just as I thought, Makarov said, and he felt a tear trying to creep its way out of his eye, but blinked it away. Would you 2 quit fighting? Urza said as she separated them in crack. She shoved their heads away from each other so hard that she actually caused their neck to almost be disjointed. Now please tell us what happened. She ordered. Even though she said please, it still sounded rather forceful the way she asked them. During that time they were with the Magic Council, they had several questions asked of them and several tests ran on them. The worst part wasn't even the tests, they asked us the same things over and over and over and over again, as if the answer was going to change or something. Naruto cringed just remembering being in that hellhole of a place. They ran blood tests on us, they tried to find who exactly we were and where we came from, but they couldn't find any matches in their system. Then they ran us on something called the MPF, Magic Power Finder. It tests a user's magic power as the name says. 3 entire days of doing nothing but these tests and those questions over and over again. I'd have to agree with Naruto that it was the most annoying place I've ever been to. Sasuke explained. So did you find what you were looking for in the library? Levi asked, returning to a conversation that should have taken place 3 days ago. The two shinobi in question nodded and Naruto pulled out the book that they acquired on their trip. They stared at the book confusingly. They thought that it was just some pop-up book that some guy wrote to try and scare children. It's not exactly what we're looking for, but I can tell this book has something to do with it. Naruto stated as he began to open the book and revealed its first page. One night, the moon turned red as if it was stained with blood, read the first page. Naruto turned to the next page, but it was blank. He showed them the rest of the pages, and they were all the same as the second page. What is the meaning of this? Makarov asked. Naruto shrugged his shoulders and said, I don't know. Sasuke says he can see numbers on each of the pages. Levi took the book from the blonde shinobi and put on her special reading glasses. But the glasses didn't even react to the book at all. The wing glasses can't even pick anything up. How is that you can see what's on the page? She asked and Sasuke frowned. He didn't really want to tell them about the Sharingan yet. Even though he used it on Urza, she is the only one who has actually seen it up close. He was about to speak, but Urza beat him to it. Is there any way you can show us what it looks like? Urza asked and he nodded. Give me something to draw with. Sasuke said and Lisanna handed him a light pen. You can use that to draw even on the air. She explained and he gave it a quick test by drawing a line in the air. That's so friggin' cool. They don't have things like that where we're from. Naruto said, thoroughly impressed by the technology of the fairy tale world. Sasuke faced the doors of the guild hall and activated his eyes so no one could see them. He began drawing the number 2 the same way it was drawn in the book. It had an intricate design, almost like the inside of a clock just in the shape of a 2. The guild was amazed at how well Sasuke could draw and based on pure memory because he wasn't even looking at the book. Hearing the oohs and ahs of the guild, he couldn't help but smirk a little. Photographic memory with the Sharingan sure does come in handy. He finished up and handed the light pen back to Lisanna. They all started at the number that he drew. Wow, it's really complex. This is probably the most complicated formula I've ever seen. But what could be so important that it needs to be hidden to this extent? Makarov questioned as he analyzed every little detail on the number. There's only one thing that I can think of that someone would go through this kind of trouble to cover up, Sasuke said, gathering everyone's attention. The past. Meanwhile, at the site of Naruto and Sasuke's origin, Seagrain took it upon himself to take a visit there. He was greeted by one of the guards and told him to fill him in on any new findings. So far we have discovered 2 human-sized crystal cocoons underneath the dirt. We suspect that this is what the suspects were in prior to the explosion. He reported. Seagrain was almost too intrigued by his statement. Take me there. He ordered and the guard gracefully complied. When he got there it was just as the guard described it. 2 human-sized cocoon crystals that were broken at the top. They look like lacrima, he thought as he put his hands on it. Feels like lacrima. I can feel a power fading away from it. So whatever it was used for can't be used again. He mused and at that moment someone wearing a lab coat approached him. Seagrain-sama, I'm glad you came. I was just about to submit a report to the council. It seems that this crystal is not even made up of material that comes from this planet. To be continued. Chapter 5. The Council's Request. An S-class mission. Everyone in the guild was pondering over what Sasuke said and how they could try to solve this mystery. Whenever people go through such lengths to cover up something, it's almost always about the past or about a plan they've concocted. Sasuke said, and seeing the logic in that statement everyone else agreed. The only way we can figure this out is if we find who wrote this book. Urza stated. I've already come up with some idea as to who it is. Sasuke started as he took the book back from Levi. Look, it was written by a man named Roku Shadame. This could be a crude way of writing the first 6. We know a man by the name of the Sage of 6 Paths, and I believe he might be the one who wrote this book. He finished. Nobody in the guild knew who the Sage of 6 Paths was, so this was all new information to them. Who is the Sage of 6 Paths? Why is he important? What happened in the past that needs to be covered up? Please tell us everything you know. Urza rapidly asked. Sorry, even we don't really know that much about him. Naruto answered and everyone was disappointed. Whoever this guy is, he must be awesome. Natsu said, thinking about the prospect of meeting the sage. Even before we came here, I was wandering the world trying to uncover the past myself. If we're gonna figure out how to go home then we need to travel the world. Sasuke explained and everyone silently agreed. "Oh, you guys are leaving already? You just joined?" Lysana asked, a little sad that the new guys just decided to leave only a few days after they joined. "Don't worry, we're not leaving the guild, just going on a trip," Naruto assured Lysana. "We leave in about a week or so. It's best to at least gather some money. It's probably impossible to go around completely unnoticed at this point, so the best option is to try and move like a normal civilian," Sasuke said. "So what are we waiting for? Let's go on a job right now," Natsu shouted and his feline partner in crime shouted out his catchphrase. There's some time left in the day, I don't see why not," Naruto said with his trademark grin. Then as if by coincidence a green toy bird with a winder in its back flew into the guild hall carrying 3 envelopes in its talons. The bird constantly repeated, "Master Makarov. Master Makarov." He held his hand out to take the letters from the bird. He reset the winder on the bird and it flew back towards the magic council. "Seems like magic is more applicable to things than chakra is," Sasuke mused as he watched the transpiring events. Makarov separated 2 of the letters and handed them to Naruto and Sasuke. "Here, this is for you. Probably compensation for that job," he said as he opened the letter Bring addressed him. "Well, you guys wanted to go on a job. Here you go. It's a simple escort mission, but the level of difficulty is S-class. Are you sure you're up to it?" Makarov asked. Natsu and Gray cheered, "S-class quest," while throwing their fist in the air. "Hold on, who said that you 2 could go?" Urza immediately rained on their parade. The 2 wanted to argue, but Naruto intervened first. "It'll be fine. If anything happens you can depend on us," Naruto assured her with a thumbs up. "I have no problem letting them go under their care. But the rules of the guild still stand. An S-class wizard must be present on this trip," Makarov said, leaving no room for any arguments. "Count me out, I don't feel like going on a job right now," Murahin said. "I have no problem going, master." After all, Urza said as she used her magic to bring a sword into her hands. With quick and precise cuts, she diced her bandages into ribbons. They revealed smooth, flawless porcelain skin. It was almost as if she had never battled Sasuke just a few days ago. The latter was a bit surprised to say the least. The only person he knew that could heal like that was Naruto. "To be honest, they healed 2 days ago. I just wanted to take it easy for a few days," she said as she re-equipped back into her standard outfit. The latter was a bit surprised to say the least. The only person he knew that could heal like that was Naruto. Not a single scar in sight, Naruto thought as he retreated to his mindscape for a moment. "Boy Kurama, do you think she might be some kind of long-lost Uzumaki?" he asked the monster fox. "Who knows? Even if she was, why does it matter?" Kurama responded and he looked at Kurama as if he was an idiot. "Are you an idiot? If she is, then she doesn't belong here. Meaning that she could have been transported here too," Naruto explained, and the tailed beast didn't take too kindly to the idiot comment. At least if the blonde shinobi flying into the wall was any indication. The woman only uses magic and on top of that, don't you think she would have been looking for a way to go back herself? "Who's calling who an idiot now?" Kurama asked sarcastically as he glared down at Naruto. "Everybody is just beating on me today," Naruto grumbled as he rubbed lump on his head. "Still, it's not impossible. Perhaps her parents could have been transported here, but she was born here," Kurama said and Naruto 2 tick marks appeared on his head. Using his best Oda anger expression he shouted, "That's basically what I said, you bastard. Just use Sage mode. Even if she doesn't know how to use chakra, her reserves will be pretty high for an average human if she's really an Uzumaki," Kurama said ignoring his comment and Naruto nodded. "So what's the request?" Naruto asked as he came back to reality. "At least close your eyes when you're talking to the fox. You make everyone think you're actually listening," Sasuke said, a little annoyed that Naruto wasn't listening. Naruto nervously chuckled and apologized for his action. "We gotta deliver some rich noble to an island in the south. Apparently there's huge sea monsters along those waters and they're relentless in who they attack, Natsu will have motion sickness, but not at this current time. At the canonical start he will though. Alright, we'll meet at the train station tomorrow morning 7 o'clock. Don't be late," Urza informed the group. With them agreeing on the time and Makarov allowing them to go, everyone decided to just go home early for a change without starting a brawl. Except for Gray. He stayed back when he heard Sasuke call to him. "You look like you've been wanting to ask me something for a while now, Gray." Gray sighed, he should have known that someone who could beat Urza in 10 seconds could pick up on his actions so quickly. Or was he acting that out of place that anyone could notice? He decided to shove those thoughts aside and came clean. "You seemed like the type that nothing gets by. Fine, I'll just come out and ask. Will you take me as a student?" Gray asked. He punched himself mentally for acting so shy all of a sudden. "Why do you want to be my student? I witnessed how strong you are and I want to be strong like you. You're the only one who can help me." Gray said with a mighty conviction. Sasuke continued to look him right in his black orbs with his stoic expression. He didn't show even a speck of fear or uncertainty. Gray reminded him of who he used to be before he got all power hungry. He was a pretty calm and collected person, at least not around Natsu from what he's seen. So he decided to test what his resolve was. Why do you want strength so bad? Gray clenched his fist as he began to tremble a bit. This didn't go unnoticed by Sasuke as he watched Gray carefully. It was only because Sasuke knows the kind of man he was in the past and he really didn't want to lead someone down that path. It was just as Kakashi told him that one time, all revenge does is leave you with pain and emptiness. Some nasty flashbacks ran through Gray's mind when he thought about Sasuke's question. Erdili or a mom-dad Gray thought of his past and when it came time to answer his question he stopped trembling. Why did he stop? He thought about all the ones that he has now. Natsu, Urza, Gramps, everyone. I lost everything once. I don't want that to ever happen again. He said with unwavering dedication. He certainly sounded like he wasn't going to take no for an answer. Sasuke smirked inwardly, his hunch was right. You sound like a loser that I knew a long time ago. Sasuke said in a reminiscent voice. Fine, I'll accept you. But I warn you, he started as he began to walk towards the guild infirmary where Naruto was currently. They could have rented an apartment, but they're gonna leave soon so they might as well save the money they earn. Especially with this S-class quest that they're about to go on was going to pay handsomely. I'll be so harsh that you might die. Be prepared. Sasuke warned and Gray actually sweat just a tiny bit. But his dedication remained unblemished as he responded in a cool demeanor as he also made his way out of the guild. Will do. The next morning everyone met at the train station as promised. Does she really need all of that luggage? Naruto asked as he saw Urza approaching with a mountain of suitcases. Something about her dimensional space can't hold all of her stuff. Gray answered nonchalantly as his attention was focused elsewhere. Meanwhile Sasuke was just in utter shock by Gray's statement. The same as Law's shocked face and op. I thought dimensional space is supposed to be infinite, he thought as a bead of sweat dripped down his temple. Natsu was jumping for joy. He was super excited that Makarov let him participate in this S-class quest. However, he knew this would be a one-time deal, so he figured he should show off as much as possible and then maybe Makarov would make him an S-class wizard. At least that's what his flying blue partner said. Good to see everyone is here on time. Urza greeted everyone with a smile. Let's be quick about this, I want to start training as early as possible. Gray said, pretty much sounding exactly like Sasuke a few days ago as he boarded the train. I really hope he doesn't turn into you. Naruto whispered to Sasuke. I agreed to take him under my wing so that doesn't happen. He answered the former as they followed Gray's example and boarded the train. This mission was meant for Naruto and Sasuke alone. The chairman's voice boomed in the courtroom. It's Master Makarov's orders that an S-class wizard be present at an S-class quest taken by the guild. It is out of our reach. Urza said in a monotone, and the old man began rubbing his forehead. Oh, relax, chairman. A couple of more people wouldn't hurt. Besides, the more people there are, the higher chance of success. Seagrain said with his usual mischievous smile. Seagrain. The client specifically requested Naruto and Sasuke, not Fairy Tail. Do you know what could happen to our reputation when we don't deliver what is asked of us? The chairman asked in such an aggressive tone that it actually frightened some of the other council members. If it becomes an issue, we could always just deem them honorary members of the 10 Wizard Saints. Surely anyone of that rank is considered S-class. If anything happens I will take the blame personally. Seagrain responded as his gaze shifted towards Urza. The latter always feels uneasy around said council member. Whether it was his smile that screamed I'm up to something. Or maybe there was a past between them that needed to be uncovered. Heck, maybe that was just her ex-boyfriend or something. Who knows? The chairman sighed as he asked Altier to debrief them on their job request. She stood up and cleared her throat. Your job is to escort a princess back down to an island south of Fiori. While under normal circumstances this would be considered a C-class or lower mission, the sea around that area is filled with gigantic sea creatures that are relentless in the attacking of passing ships. Since the current there is also non-existent, the trip will take longer than traveling anywhere else. Also, beware of pirates. The princess and her escorts have also asked us to keep their identity confidential until she can confirm that the people she has requested has met her standards. Altier read and sat back down. Yujima told the guards to let the clients in, and they complied. She requested us specifically and refuses to reveal her identity until she can confirm that we meet her standards. What standards is she talking about? Sasuke thought as doors slowly opened up. Smoke enveloped the bottom of the floor as the temperature in the room dropped a few degrees. In walked a young girl, around the same age as Urza and about average height. She had waist length, pale white hair with a tint of blue in it, almost like a diamond color. She had a round face and pale skin. She wore a form-fitting, white long-sleeved shirt with thin black vertical stripes lining the entire garment. She wore black pants with a black belt at a round porcelain buckle, accompanied by a pair of white boots that looked as soft as a pillow. She was adorned by a white coat that she wore in a cape-like fashion and extended all the way to her ankles. The cuffs had white fur on them and black shoulder pads similar to that of a pirate. Her most noticeable feature was the bandages that were wrapped around her eyes and earrings that resembles the Osaka beads that were usually around the neck of the Sage of Six Paths made of solid gold. Her white coat swayed elegantly from whatever breeze caused its movement. Team Fairy Tail took in her form and all thought that she didn't look the way they thought she would. She dresses modestly but extravagant at the same time. Urza said. Definitely not your average princess. I can say that much. Gray added. That was the most badass entrance I've ever seen a princess have. Naruto and Natsu both said at the same time as they had stars in their eyes admiring her. Sasuke wordlessly watched her, taking in the bandages over her eyes as some kind of clue as to why she wanted her identity to be kept secret. The fact that she requested himself and Naruto specifically, even though they have only been here for a few days, makes it even more suspicious. Lillian-sama, these are the ones that you have requested. The chairman greeted and she motioned for him to stop speaking. Please, just call me Lily, Mr. Chairman. Even though I can't see them, I know that they're there. She answered before turning to their direction and bowed her head. It's quite an honor to meet you, Naruto-sama, Sasuke-sama. She greeted respectfully. Ain't no need to bow your head to us. We're just your average guys. Naruto said as he rubbed his head bashfully. She lifted her head and focused towards the other three wizards and happy. Who is she? She asked and it made the three wizards feel a bit uneasy. She can't see me, but it feels like she's staring right into my soul. Urza said in a low voice so that only they could hear. No kidding, Natsu and Gray muttered. My name is Urza Scarlet and this is Natsu, Gray, and Happy. It's a pleasure to meet you. She said as she bowed gracefully. She noticed that Gray and Natsu didn't bow along with her, so she forcefully pushed their heads down, much to their dismay. The pleasure is mine. Now shall we get going? She responded as she turned to head for the exit but immediately bumped into the door head first. Lillian-sama, you really must use your walking stick, one of her attendants said as he placed said object in her hand. Oh thank you. As she began to walk out, slowly but surely. That was kind of lame, Natsu deadpanned as the rest of them began to follow her. Harbor in southern Fiori. The train ride went pretty smoothly, well, with the exception of Natsu and Gray's occasional fights. Heck, even Naruto and Sasuke got into a little dispute over some childish things as well, just as they did in the old days. Sasuke was far from childish in this regard, but whenever Naruto is around, something makes him want to resort immature name-calling. Also, there was one time when Gray took his stripping habit a little too far and stripped right in front of poor Lily. How could she be affected if her eyes are bandaged up, you ask? Gray unconsciously tossed a delicate garment and unfortunately it landed right on the poor girl's face. Excuse me, may I ask you what happened to your eyes? Urza asked Lily. They were injured in battle, so they'll take about a week or so to fully recover. Normally, I could get home by myself, but since I have this disability now I can't really do much. She answered with a smile while looking directly at Urza. Well, after what happened on the train I'm kind of glad I can't see right now, she said as she and her fellow female sweat dropped at the thought. Please forgive him. His habit is very strange. Gray had turned away his head in embarrassment. I thought he was just a pervert. When I go home I have to really wash my face with the best of soaps. Oh Gray protested and Natsu was just dying of laughter at this point. Geez, you look like such an idiot. He continued to laugh and he just happened to slip on a small sheet of ice. Big enough to capture his whole foot but small enough to remain unseen. Who looks like an idiot? Gray asked as Natsu got back up with lightning speed and they began butting heads as they walked. Oh, so we're pulling cheap shots now, are we? He yelled, but Urza made sure that she put an end to that argument before they get the whole harbor caught up in their nonsense. Can you two stop fighting for just one day? I swear if you mess anything up on this ship I'll have your heads. Urza threatened, no promised. Natsu and Gray shrieked in fear, begging Urza not to kill them where they stand. Geez, it's every day with you two, Urza sighed as her attention was drawn back to the young lady they were escorting. I didn't think you were a fighter. You don't really look mean and scary like Urza. Happy said as he flew up next to her. She chuckled a little bit and said, Urza-san doesn't sound like she's scary. Still, your sensory skills are pretty decent if you could tell who we were and how many of us there were without being able to see anything. Sasuke slightly praised, causing the girl to blush a little bit. It's an honor to be praised by you, Sasuke-sama. Lillian said, and once again Sasuke was suspicious. Sure, it wasn't the first time someone has addressed him with that honorific, but she spoke to him as if she knows him. They stopped in front of a ship. It was a smaller Caravel class ship. The figurehead was that of a black falcon with red lining on its ears. The ship had a dark gray hull with white railings. Everyone looked up at the ship and admired its handiwork. "This has to be the coolest ship I've ever seen." Naruto yelled in excitement as he looked up at the ship. "Isn't this ship awesome, Happy?" Natsu asked his furry little friend as he placed his hand on the ship. I've never been out to sea before," he answered as he flew up and around the figurehead. "This ship can surely fit all of us. About how long will the travel be?" Urza asked as one of Lillian's attendants dropped a plank out for everyone to walk on. "About a week. The currents should be decent around this time of year," she said as she began to board the ship with the help of one of her attendants. Urza following with her gigantic pile of luggage. She must have monster strength to be able to pull that with such ease. After doing a check of the food supply and other basic needs for the journey, Urza, the self-proclaimed leader of the operation, decided that it was time to set sail. Naruto hoisted the anchor, Gray and Natsu unfurled the sails. Spinning the steering wheel about 90 degrees to the right, it was time for their newest adventure to begin. "Set sail," Natsu shouted at the top of his lungs. Happy flew next to him and took a set on his shoulder. "I can already feel the adventures coming along. We should go out to sea more often," Happy said and Natsu nodded. "I'd hate it if I couldn't enjoy setting sail." They sailed for a bit longer and it was just about time for lunch. One of Lily's attendants prepared quite the feast for lunch consisting of a lot of meat. The other one was going to help Lily eat but she waved him off. "I don't need to be able to see to eat meat," she said as she grabbed one of the larger piece of meat and began chewing from it like a pirate. Everyone except for Natsu and Naruto, who were too busy stuffing their faces to even care about what she was doing, sweat dropped at how abnormal her behavior was for a supposed princess. As the food began to slowly diminish, Lily decided that this would be a good time to tell them more information about the request. "I bet you guys are wondering why I requested you two specifically," she said as she focused on the two shinobi. "Yes, some more information about what exactly we're dealing with would be helpful," Urza said. "I'll tell you this much for now. And you'll learn more once we've reached our destination," she said and Sasuke raised an eyebrow. "What exactly are you going to tell us?" he asked. "My name," she answered and even everyone focused on her. Even Natsu paused his feast for a moment. "Your name? I thought your name was Lillian," Naruto asked. "Yes. My name is Lillian. Lillian Litsutsuki." Naruto and Sasuke hopped out of their chair and into a battle position. Naruto's fists glowed an orange color and Sasuke activated his Rinnegan and gripped his sword, sliding it out the sheath just a little bit. The wizards were so confused as they did double takes on the two shinobi and Lily. Urza got up and stretched her arms out in an attempt to keep everyone separated. However, she didn't drop her guard for even 1 second. She knew that if one person made the wrong move things could get really ugly. "Now just hold on a second, let's settle this in a calm manner," Urza said, trying to calm the two shinobi down. "You wouldn't understand. You've never seen the power of an Otsutsuki clan member before," Naruto said as he didn't take his eyes off her for even a second. What is your connection to Kagaya?" Sasuke demanded an answer out of her. This entire time she didn't even budge an inch, but she couldn't deny the drop of sweat that dripped down her forehead. She knew that if she moved even an inch in the wrong direction her life would end. The tension between them was so thick you could cut it with a knife. "Naruto-sama, Sasuke-sama. I have no intention of being your enemy. As far as my connection with Kagaya-sama, well, it's the whole reason why we're here," she answered in a very respectful tone with hopes of making them relax a little. But to no avail, Naruto clenched his fist tighter and Sasuke continued to glare at her. "The reason why we're here? I thought we're here to take a visually impaired princess back home safe and sound," Gray said and all eyes fell on Lillian. "That part is still true. But I told you that my eyes got injured in a battle, but that wasn't exactly true," she said and Urza frowned a little. "Why did you lie to us?" she asked. "I didn't want anyone to pick up on the information I'm about to tell you. Even though I requested this from them, the council does not trust me simply because I'm not from this continent. And the fact that I requested potential criminals didn't exactly help that either," Lillian answered and Urza understood the logic in that and decided not to say anything further. Everybody remained silent as they waited for Lillian to explain herself. "I came to this continent because I have a destiny to fulfill," Lily said in a stoic manner. Naruto raised his eyebrow. He was intrigued because the last person to talk about destiny in such a tone was Niji and he changed long ago. "I'm supposed to deliver a message to two special individuals. Those two are Naruto Uzumaki and Sasuke Uchiha," she continued. Naruto and Sasuke didn't lower their guard at all. On the contrary, they actually became more cautious. "What kind of message are we talking here?" the former asked and Lily reached into her pocket and pulled out a pure black scroll and rolled it towards Urza. The latter picked it up and opened it. "I have had a vision. A vision of those who once saved the world will plant the seeds that will destroy it. History will repeat itself and the battle will restart. The ones who maintain peace will be the harbingers of war. No matter where they go, they will follow. I, Zayden, deliver this final message to the ones called children of prophecy. Beware of the clan of origins. She read and everyone had either a confused or thoughtful look. Who the heck is Zayden and how does he know who these people are? Why didn't he say who exactly they were? How does he know who we are? I'm so confused right now. Naruto said as he nearly ripped out his hair in frustration. Relax, I'm sure that Lily has more to explain. Don't you? Sasuke asked in a kind of threatening tone that made Lily swallow a lump in her throat. There is more, but we have to wait until we get to our destination to fully explain everything you want to know. She answered. It would be wrong to say that the two shinobi had calmed down, they just weren't directing any hostile intent towards Lily. If anyone calmed down it certainly was her. Upon first sight Naruto and Sasuke didn't seem that intimidating, but when you've got their attention then you can talk about presence. Meanwhile black smoke began to fill the room and everyone turned to see where it was coming from. Guys, I think Natsu's brain is broken guys. Happy said, and Natsu sat there with the most confused expression he's probably ever held. I'm confused too, and all but Natsu took this to a whole nother level. Gray said, sweat dropping along with everyone. Natsu, be careful, you might hurt yourself, Urza said almost unwillingly in embarrassment of her longtime friend. As she said that his head immediately stopped smoking. Phew, thinking is pretty tough. The smoke is pretty cool though. Natsu said as he took another bite of food, everyone just sighed and shook their heads. He's hopeless. He's lucky he has me around to take care of him, Happy said in an older brotherly manner. Wait, anyone hear that? Urza asked, putting her gauntlet-covered hand to her ear. There was subtle humming noise coming from under the ship. It's about time for the dangerous part of this trip to begin. In these parts where the sea starts to get a little foggy, sea monsters will attack almost any ship passing by. Lily said. Oh yeah, now I'm all fired up. Is there one near us right now? Natsu asked and Lily shushed. Everyone lifted her hand to her ear like Urza did before. The humming sound became deeper and louder. Sounds like elephant whale. She said and suddenly the ship rocked violently. Everybody, outside. Now. Urza ordered and everyone ran out. Lily was right, there was a whale at least twice as big as the ship they were on. Whoa, that thing is gigantic. Gray said as he took in its form. It was a whale that had a round face like an orca. Its skin was gray and very wrinkly, similar to that of an elephant. It's got the name from the two tusks it has on its face. Be careful, they're harder than steel. Lily informed them. Fire Dragon's brilliant flame. Natsu shouted as he led the charge against the beast, hurling a giant fireball towards the behemoth. A cloud of dust formed, but with its tough skin the attack barely did any damage at all. It charged towards the boat only to be blocked by a thick wall of ice. Oh. Somebody finish it while you have the chance. Gray shouted, but unfortunately his ice was too weak to hold against a powerful creature like that. His magic certainly caught the attention of Sasuke, he never imagined that Gray would use ice magic. But then again, the way he fights with Natsu, it makes a lot of sense. Gray's ice wall completely shattered and the monster continued to charge through. However, it was then halted by 4 orange chakra arms, grabbing its tusks and holding it back. Go for it, Natsu. Naruto ordered. Aim for the center of its head. That's its weak spot. Lily said and Natsu jumped down towards the monster. He cocked his fist all the way back and coated it with fire. Fire Dragon's Iron Fist. He declared his attack as he placed that fist right in the spot that Lily told them about. The whale didn't even get a chance to bellow in pain. In that one punch Natsu used as much strength as he could and knocked that animal out cold. However, his impulsive behavior made him forget about one thing. The vast ocean was right beneath him. Luckily for him, he was caught by a purple arm made entirely of chakra. That monster was awesome. I want to fight another one like those. Natsu said excitedly. There'll be plenty more, I'll tell you that. But the one we need to avoid is the Leviathan. Lily warned and the attention was once again drawn towards her. The Leviathan? I feel like I've heard that somewhere before. Urza mused. You probably have. It's listed in most guilds as a SS class quest. It's got a bounty of about $40 million jewel. Nobody has ever seen it face to face and lived to tell the tale. Lily said and Natsu had stars on his eyes. Oh, I wanna see it now. Let's see it. I wanna fight it. Natsu bounced around like a child whose parent just told them about a candy store they were going to. Absolutely not. Urza said and Natsu pouted. Come on, we took care of Whale Thingy pretty easily, I don't see why we can't. Natsu whined. Urza-sen is right. The only ones here strong enough to kill it are Naruto-sama and Sasuke-sama. What exactly is a Leviathan and how do we avoid it? Gray asked. She turned and said. Well, with the course we're on now, we should be able to avoid it without much of a problem. We should reach the Leviathan's territory within 3 days, but that does not mean that we are safe. The Leviathan can show up at any time, and there are still many others to deal with. Lily warned them and they nodded their heads. By any chance, what are the chances of running into the Leviathan when it's not in its territory? Sasuke asked. It's roughly about 10%. Izumo said. An. Her servants' names are going to be Izumo and Kitetsu. It's not like Naruto remembers them anyway lol. What is a Leviathan anyway? Happy asked. It's a gigantic mythical creature. I hear it's the closest thing to being a dragon on Earth. Kitetsu answered. A dragon? Now I really want to meet it. Maybe it might know where Ignil ran off to. Natsu said. Why on earth would a creature that lives in the ocean know where a creature that lives in the sky went? Idiot. Gray asked and the two once again resumed their routine habit. What did you call me, Ice Princess? You better watch your mouth, dragon boy. Would you two stop fighting? And put some clothes on Gray. Anyway, if we do run into this creature, what should we do? Sasuke asked, ignoring the shrieks of pain coming from his left. Honestly, escaping it in this ship is impossible. If I were at my full strength then it would be. Our only option is to fight it if we somehow run into it. Even still, to fight it without having the ship getting capsized is also nearly impossible. Our best bet is to avoid it completely. Lily answered. I hope we can avoid it. If we fight it we're gonna have to kill it. And if people find out about that, the council's gonna be down our throats, Naruto said with annoyance. Soon the ship was shaking violently again and out of the water came a giant eel, about the same size as the elephant whale. The huge splash of water caused everyone's clothes to be soaked. Urza was especially upset because it interrupted her scolding of the fire and ice wizard. How dare you interrupt my lesson? I'll have your head. Urza declared as she pulled out a sword. As a way to say F you, the giant eel spewed even more water onto the redhead wizard. A water gun so powerful that it pushed Urza against the wall of the ship. Natsu and Gray couldn't help but snicker at the eel's action. Sweet, sweet karma, they thought. The eel had a smug grin on its after its onslaught of water on the armored wizard. However, the eel didn't know who it was messing with. Urza re-equipped into her black wing armor and moved to annihilate the gargantuan eel. Slicing it up to bits and pieces within the matter of moments. She landed back on the ship and changed back to her regular clothing. The moment she did, the eel broke into several bite-sized pieces. This installed the fear back into Natsu and Gray's hearts. She mercilessly diced up that eel. But then again, the eel has it coming. Don't mess with Titania, the queen of the fairies. After a few more days of battling giant sea creatures, the day of promise finally came. Everyone was tired of fighting sea monsters and hoped to land soon. While they were only about 2-3 days away from land, this was the most critical part of the entire trip. We're almost there, just 2 more days you guys. But don't let your guard down. This is the most dangerous part of the trip. It's sink or swim. Lily warned the crew, but meanwhile everyone was pretty much exhausted. Day and night they were battling monster after monster after monster. I really don't want to run into any more monsters, let alone the Leviathan. Naruto said with a tired voice. The crew responded with a bunch of groans of agreement and Lily sweat dropped. Natsu seemed to be playing with some blue string, muttering to himself about keeping it as a souvenir. Well, it's fine as long as we don't brush by any of the receptors on its body. She said. Just what would those receptors be? Happy asked kind of nervously. They're like large blue strands of hair that stick out from the sides of fin like rocks. Lily asked. You mean like the ones that Natsu is touching right now? Gray asked as everyone turned towards Natsu holding the said blue hair in his hand that he plucked from the fin-like rock. You idiot. Everyone yelled at the pink-haired wizard. Soon after there was an eerie silence as everyone anticipated the reveal of this great creature. The few seconds they waited was possibly the longest they ever waited for a monster to reveal themselves. Suddenly the water beneath them began to ripple and the boat shook violently. Kitetsu, lead me to the bottom of the ship. Lily ordered and he complied with swiftness. Once at the bottom, there was a door that opened up to the back of the ship. There was little time as the water continued to rise at a rapid pace. Lily's hands glowed a light blue color and she placed her hand in the water. Come on, I don't need much, just please let this work. She thought as she began to exert more and more power. Kitetsu saw the blue glow coming from her bandages and immediately expressed his concern. My lady, you shouldn't exert yourself so much. Your eyes haven't completely healed yet, you could go blind permanently if you try to move an object as large as this. It's better than dying after coming to this point. Besides, more than my eyes are at stake here. She responded. Naruto and Sasuke felt the discharge of her chakra and immediately became tense. What is that chakra? It's powerful. Sasuke asked. Everybody grab onto something quick. Izumo warned as he held on to the railing of the ship. Everybody rushed towards the railing, same as Izumo. What are we holding on for? Natsu asked as the water rose to the point where the ship's elevation began to rise. Lady Lillian is going to launch the ship. Izuma warned, and before you know it, Lily shouted at the top of her lungs as she exerted her power. The ship launched several feet in the air and across quite the distance, just barely dodging the head of the Leviathan that emerged from the water. The Leviathan's head was several times larger than the ship. If you had to estimate, the Leviathan is about the size of a small town if not bigger. The crew held onto the ship as tight as they could as they looked at the gigantic creature they were face to face with. Splash. The ship landed with a huge splash, and although they were away from the head of the beast, they were by no means in the clear. Natsu, I swear if we survive this I'll kill you myself. Gray threatened as he looked up at the massive beast. So this is the beast with a 40 million jewel bounty on its head. Urza said as she marveled at the incredible creature in front of her. We can't delay. If we let a battle against this thing go too long we'll be swimming home. Let's go all out from the beginning. Sasuke said as his Rinnegan activated and a purple aura began to surround him. It's certainly been a while since we last transformed. I hope you are trusty Kurama. Naruto smirked as he began to emit an orange-colored aura himself. Speak for yourself runt. I'm always ready to go. Kurama smirked right back as Naruto jumped over the railing landed on the salty sea. In the meantime I suggest you get as far away from her as possible. If you stay you'll die. Sasuke ordered as he followed Naruto off the ship. How the heck are they gonna beat something like that? Gray asked, in utter disbelief. We should listen to what he says. If the ship capsizes in the middle of the battle no one is going to survive. Urza said as she went to grab the helm of ship. No. We're staying right here. Natsu said. Are you kidding me, didn't you hear what he said? If we stay here we're all gonna die. Gray argued as he grabbed the Natsu's vest. He just sat there, his expression not changing in the slightest. Yeah Natsu? I don't wanna stay here at all. Happy said as he trembled in fear of the largest creature in the ocean. If they can't save us from this situation then was the point of asking them to train us Natsu asked and the grip Gray had on his clothing loosened a bit. We asked them to train us because we believe they are strong. If we run, we don't have any real faith in their strength. That's how I feel. Natsu said and Gray trembled a bit, but he smiled. I can't believe I let this guy make me look like a coward. Not only am I staying. I'm gonna fight too. Gray exclaimed as he jumped off the side of the ship to follow Naruto and Sasuke. Natsu grinned and followed suit. They're so reckless. We have no choice but to stay now. Urza said and Katetsu carried an unconscious Lillian in his arms, bridal style. Is she alright? Urza asked with concern in her voice. Despite knowing her for only a few days, the two actually became good friends. She used a pretty taxing move while she wasn't even fully healed. Under normal circumstances she would have been able to launch the ship with ease. He answered. Urza nodded as she turned towards the Leviathan. Whatever happens. I'm glad I came on this job. Naruto and Sasuke stood on the ocean surface preparing themselves for their first major battle in this new world. Suddenly they heard a graceful landing and an ungraceful splash occur behind them. They turned to see what it was and there you had Gray standing on a small sheet of ice and Natsu struggling to make his way to the ice sheet. Why don't people ever listen to me? Sasuke asked with a scowl on his face. We don't want to stand around. We want to fight too. Natsu argued and Naruto just sighed. Play Ost. Heaven-shaking event. Just try to keep up. Naruto said as a large amount of power began to exert from his body. Sasuke followed suit by emitting the same energy he needs for his perfect susanoo. 9 orange chakra tails emerged from Naruto as he made his transition from human to tailed beast. Before you knew it, the 9-tailed fox was standing there in all its glory. Natsu and Gray were flabbergasted when they found themselves inside the chakra of the strongest tailed beast. Whoa, I feel power coursing through me like never before. Natsu said as his body erupted into flames. I've never felt so strong. Just what kind of power is this? Gray thought flexing his muscles. The Leviathan decided not to wait any longer as it began to charge up a beam in its mouth, similar to the way a tailed beast bomb is made. It took the energy into its mouth and let it go all at once and a gigantic beam of water came at them at lightning speed. But to no avail, no damage was done to the quartet as a purple sword deflected the beam towards the sky and the sheer shockwave of the blast caused high tides on the water. That was kind of close don't you think? Naruto asked sarcastically and Sasuke ignored him. The once orange 9-tailed fox now had a purple samurai armor supporting it. We're going to kill it in one shot. Gray, use your ice to freeze the ocean as deep as possible. Restrict its movement even for just a second. Natsu use your flames and Naruto use your power to further the strength of my sword. We won't get a second chance. Sasuke ordered and everyone nodded in compliance. Gray focused all of his energy into freezing the ocean. He froze it about 40 meters deep and as far as the eye could see. Barely staying conscious, he tried to maintain the beast while the other three proceeded to do their job. Naruto applied much of his chakra to Sasuke and it caused the sword to double in size. The Leviathan squirmed trying break free of Gray's ice and succeeded without much effort. But it was 1 second too late as the gargantuan sword came down coated in black and red flames from Natsu and the Amaterasu. Once it made contact with the Leviathan's skull, Gray collapsed unable to keep the ocean frozen any longer and the ice melted. The swing of the sword managed to split the ocean down the middle itself. Urza and the other on the ship couldn't do anything but marvel at the power they were witnessing. But the most shocking thing wasn't even the defeat of the Leviathan. And Ost. The sword split its head and as soon as that happened. Poof. The Leviathan disappeared in a cloud of white smoke and caused a high tide to occur on the sea surface. Huh? I don't get it. Are sea monsters supposed to disappear like that? What? Don't tell me. Naruto exclaimed as his eyelids nearly ripped with the strain of how shocked he was. The Leviathan was a summoning animal. To be continued. Chapter 7. Finally a chance to rest. Arriving at Lillian's home. Who could have possibly summoned such a gigantic creature? Sasuke asked. It had to have been a boss summon, there's no way something that big couldn't be a boss summon. Naruto said. What are you guys talking about? Sure it was strange, but we should be happy that we beat it. Gray said. The two shinobi proceeded to give them a quick explanation on what summoning animals were and what they meant to shinobi. Everything from the summoning contract to the variety of summons that you could own at once. They made sure not to show either of them, especially Natsu, the hand signs of the technique considering what they had to do because of Natsu's carelessness. And they were not about to go on a wild goose chase to find him if he ever got himself teleported to some faraway secluded land. Well, at least with a Leviathan out of the way we can have smooth sailing to our destination. Naruto said with a content smile. Sasuke held Gray's unconscious body over his shoulder and made his way towards the ship. Hey Natsu, Naruto said in a deep serious tone. Natsu looked at him, his eyes being covered by his blonde hair. Did you see the way the ship flew? That was like the coolest thing ever, you know. Naruto asked excitedly as he acted out the flying ship as best as he could. I know, right? I've gotta ask her to teach me that trick. Natsu said with glimmering stars in his eyes. They followed Sasuke and climbed up the rope ladder to the deck of the ship. Urza met them at the top of the rope ladder with a rather impressed smile. That was an incredible show of strength, it's no wonder the council is concerned about you. She said and Naruto rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. Well, you know, he said bashfully, then he looked around and saw that there are a few people missing. Where's Lillian? Naruto asked. Tetsu is taking care of her in the girl's room. Moving the ship in her condition took more of a toll on her than she thought. And Gray? Urza answered as she turned to Sasuke, who carrying his lifeless body. Just exhaustion. Even with a power boost from Naruto, that's all he could manage. Sasuke said analytically as he walked to the men's quarters. That's still an impressive feat, don't you think? Urza asked and Sasuke smirked, replying with his usual grunt. How much longer until we get to where we need to go? Naruto asked. Not much longer, maybe another 2 or 3 days. You pull up the anchor. Natsu, you unfurl the sails. I'll turn the ship to port and get us on the right course. Urza ordered as the pseudo captain of the ship. To which Naruto and Natsu responded in a salute and a firm yes ma'am. They immediately got to work and thus they were back on track to the islands to the south. Nothing too eventful happened along the course of the day. Gray had woken up from his nap to hear Urza scolding Natsu about not stealing food from others, only to calmly go back sleep. I don't have the energy to deal with that right now. The next morning, everyone woke up, more so the group from Fairy Tail since Lillian was still recovering. Urza was first to step out on deck and her eyes widened at the view, or what lack thereof. The entire ship and the sea was engulfed in a thick mist. One could barely see out in front of them in this mist. There wasn't a cloud in sight yesterday, why is here such a drastic change? Urza asked herself out loud as she put her hand on her forehead to act as a visor for her eyes. Nothing but mist in sight. The door creaked open behind her and it was Kotetsu who came through yawning. He smiled and said, we're finally in our island's climate and in no time flat. Is it like this all year round? Urza asked and he nodded. Oh, look at all this fog. I haven't been in fog like this since the Sea Route of Silence. Naruto said as he and Sasuke came out of the men's quarters. So is it just a straight shot to the island now? Sasuke asked and Kotetsu nodded. We would arrive by morning. He said as he went inside the galley to prepare breakfast for everyone. How's Gray? Urza asked. He's just being lazy. And what about Lily? Naruto answered. She's doing just fine, she should be ready to take off her bandages tomorrow night. Urza said with a smile and Naruto grinned. That's great, I've been waiting to see what she's been hiding under there. He said. But that stunt she pulled with the ship, I'm expecting some kind of Rinnegan. Sasuke commented. Well, we'll find out tomorrow, but for now. Let's eat. Naruto said as he stormed into the galley. Suddenly another door burst open and Natsu ran out screaming, "Did someone just say let's eat?" He ran into the galley in a similar fashion as Naruto. Urza could have helped but chuckled at their actions. "Pair like two peas in pod," she said. "Yeah, they're both idiots," Sasuke said as he leaned over the railing staring off into the mist. "You and Gray aren't that far off from each other either." Urza chuckled as she leaned over the railing to stare out into the mist as well. Sasuke watched her from the corner of his eye as her beautiful, one-of-a-kind scarlet red hair swayed in the wind. He continued to wordlessly stare in an aloof manner for a few more silent moments until she decided to break the silence. "Can I ask you something?" Urza asked nervously as her expression became more or less downcast. Sasuke went back to watching what little amount of ocean there was and responded with a grunt. "When you said that my eyes were the same as his, what do you mean by that? I changed that line to his because I realized that it was mistake on the initial post." He thought back to when his duel with her over about 2 weeks ago. He had her at his mercy with little trouble, and as he took in the look in her eyes he thought. "I was talking about my elder brother. As far as what I mean, I can't answer that," he answered indifferently. Urza took this as a sign that he wouldn't expand on the subject and just left it alone for now. Their journey was close to being over and who knows what kind of dangers would be ahead of them. She had to focus on the task at hand, she thought. Just because the Leviathan is gone doesn't mean that we're 100% safe. The next day, the shore was finally within sight. "Land ho!" Natsu and Happy both cheered loudly, jumping in celebration. "I can't wait to finally set foot on land. Feels like we've been out here forever," Gray said. "Returning home after a long mission is the best," Lillian said, trying to feel as much of the cool mist as possible. "Today's also the day you can take your bandages off, Milady," Kitetsu said, smiling. "Yeah, we'll finally get to see what you're hiding under there since you never take them off," Naruto said, and Lily giggled. "Don't worry, you'll see soon enough," she said. "Well, it's not like she's supposed to take them off," Urza said. "I just want to see what she has to do with the Otsutsuki," Sasuke said. "Oh, I almost forgot about that. Where are we going after this anyway?" Naruto asked. "I thought we could relax for a while before that, but I don't think Sasuke can wait any longer," Lillian said. "Who knows what could be happening in the Leaf right now? We are shinobi, disaster can strike at any time," Sasuke said as the ship finally reached the dock. Gray lowered the anchor while Izumo and Kitetsu tied up the sails. The rest of the group hopped off of the ship while Urza stayed behind to help the blind princess off the ship. Lillian's eyes were covered by her hair and smile had just a touch of sadness to it. And with a low voice she said. "I don't think you'll have to worry about the Leaf Village." Sasuke turned to her, hearing her mumble something. "What did you say?" he asked. "How could all of you boys be so inconsiderate to just ignore a blind princess that needs help?" Urza interrupted the potential unstable situation that answering that question could possibly lead to. Cueing the arguments between Natsu and Gray about who is at fault for leaving the girl by herself. Meanwhile, a crowd of people began to gather up around the dock and from the look of it, their interest was in the boat that they had arrived in. They saw Urza who giving a piggyback ride to Lillian in order to come down the rope ladder. Urza would have just jumped under normal circumstances, but she didn't want to risk it with Lillian on her back. Once they noticed Lillian's distinctively colored hair, the crowd erupted into cheers. "Lillian-sama has returned." They began to rush towards the young girl, but was stopped in their tracks when Naruto and Sasuke slid in their way. "Hold on now, we can't let you all just surround her, the injured need peace and quiet in order to recover," Naruto said. "You mean Lillian-sama is injured?" one citizen questioned. "What have you done to Lillian-sama, you fiends?" another shouted angrily. "Hey, we didn't do anything to her, we made sure she got back here safe and sound, you know," Naruto exclaimed. "Wait. Isn't that the legends themselves?" Naruto and Sasuke, one villager questioned, and everyone took a good look at them. Once they realized that it was exactly who they thought they were, they erupted into even louder cheering than ever before. "What an honor to meet a living legend," one civilian shouted. "Legend? What are they talking about?" "Ooh ah," Naruto screamed as they were about to crowd around them instead until the sound of jingling metal and someone speak. "Okay everyone, that's enough," said a voice that sounded like a young man from the midst of the crowd. The crowd parted ways for the voice and immediately became quiet once they saw who it was. The entire crowd bowed respectfully to the young man. He seemed to be just a little older than Naruto and Sasuke. He had black hair that fell just above his shoulder with jet black eyes. He's wearing a dark blue long-sleeved dress shirt tucked into black pants, sported with a black belt and a silver buckle. He wears a black coat that had fur on it in the exact same way as Lillian's coat. He carried a silver staff designed the same way as the Sage of Six Paths. "Lily, I can see from looking at these two that the mission was a success," he greeted with a kind smile. Lillian shook herself loose from Urza and ran towards this young man saying. I missed you big broth wah. She tripped over a loose board in the dock and within an instant, the man she was about to call Big Brother appeared in front of her and caught her before she fell, getting oohs and ahs from the crowd. Lillian-sama, you must really use your walking stick, Izumo said. He's quick on his feet. Sasuke thought. He's so fast. Natsu said. I didn't even see him move. Gray said in disbelief. I'd expect nothing less from him, he is our village's current leader. Kitetsu said with a smile. Are you alright, Lily? He asked. Yes, thank you, Burrell. An. The first one that can guess how I named these two, you'll win a special reward. And that reward will be a sneak peek on what's to come in later parts of this story. She answered with a smile. He helped her stand up straight again and asked. Your eyes are bandaged, what happened to them? He asked and she shook her head. It was backlash from releasing the jutsu, I should be able to take them off today. Lily answered. That's good. An angry growl erupted from Naruto's stomach, but Naruto wasn't hungry. Kurama, what's wrong? Naruto asked worriedly, and Kurama continued to growl angrily. This one's chakra, it reminds me of Madara. Kurama growled. Really? He doesn't seem like that bad of a guy. Besides, he's Lillian's older brother and she's awesome. Naruto responded. How naive can you be? Or do you not remember the Uchiha brat's older brother? Kurama asked and Naruto wore a thoughtful look. Alright Kurama, I won't let my guard down. I promise. Naruto assured, giving Kurama the classic good guy thumbs up. Kurama looked at him, an annoyed expression plastered on his mug before responding, HMPH, just make sure, because if you die I die. Now I'm sure all of you must be very tired from the long trip with all the sea monsters you've had to deal with. Please come with me and I'll show you where you can stay for the time being. Burrell said in a very respectful tone. Thanks but no thanks. We've already had this conversation on the ship. Lillian had something to show us and we want to make it quick. Sasuke said and Burrell chuckled. You must be talking about Lillian's destiny and what occurred when you were entrapped in that crystal. Very well then I'll show you. He said as he motioned for them to follow. All citizens, prepare a festival for the return of my sister. Burrell ordered and they all got right to it. You're pretty young to be a village leader. Or are you just older than we think you are? Urza asked and Burrell's facial expression became very serious and so did Lily's. You see, it wasn't until a few years ago that I became the leader of the village. Our parents, my father, who was the village leader for some time, was murdered. I will never forget the day, he explained. July 7, Act 777. Our parents were assassinated and their eyes were brutally gouged out of their heads. Lily said as she balled up her fists in anger, trying as hard as she could to fight back the tears that were forming in her eyes. Wait. Did you just say July 7, Act 777? That's the same day that Igneel disappeared. Natsu exclaimed. Everyone was shocked to say the least, it wasn't every day you hear a story about someone being mutilated. Could those two events somehow be connected? Urza asked. No way. Igneel is a nice dragon. He would never do something like that. Natsu exclaimed. I don't think a gigantic dragon could assassinate a couple and then rip their eyes out of their head. Gray said matter-of-factly. You said that their eyes were missing. What kind of eyes did they have and how many people in the village possessed that eye? Sasuke asked. No one in the village possessed Sharingan other than myself and my father. My mother had the Byakugan and her eyes were gouged out as well. The villagers suspect me because they know what it takes to unlock the full potential of the Sharingan. And as an Uchiha, you should know too. Burrell answered and Sasuke pondered. Do you have the Manjukam Sharingan? He asked and Burrell activated his normal 3-Tomo Sharingan, then the Sharingan shifted into a 4-pronged shuriken with dagger-shaped blades with straight thin blades sticking out diagonally from the center. They're not the same as Sasuke's. Or they're not as strong as Sasuke's, I should say. Urza thought as she stared right into his blood-red eyes. Wow, those are so cool. Where can I get a pair of those? Natsu asked. I don't think you can just buy them, Natsu happy said, sweat dropping in embarrassment. Those are some pretty scary looking eyes. Gray said as he continued to stare into them. Don't stare at them too long, you might get caught in a genjutsu. Naruto said and Burrell's eyes bled just a tiny bit right as he was about to deactivate his eyes. I hope I never have to use those eyes, Burrell groaned as he covered his eyes. You shouldn't. Use them too much and you'll end up like her. Forever. Sasuke said as he pointed over to Lillian. I know. They continued to walk until they were in quite a shrewd location along the outskirts of the village. There was a large shrine that resembled an ancient Buddha temple, and by the looks of the rundown stone on the buildings it was ancient. This building was built centuries ago in the honor of the saviors of the world. Burrell said as they stepped up to a door that had quite an intricate seal on it. There were two small panels about the size of a normal human's hand that were connected to the seal. Place your hands on those two panels, the seal can only react to chakra from the 6 paths. No, that would be incorrect. It will only react to the chakra of Ashura and Indra. Burrell said. Naruto and Sasuke glanced at each other for a moment and nodded. They raised their hands and placed it on the panel as was directed, and suddenly orange chakra began to leak from Naruto's hand, while purple chakra leaked from Sasuke's hand respectively. The chakra crisscrossed and traced the entire seal before meeting in the middle and filling in the yin-yang seal. A bright light flashed, and the sound of a door unlocking filled the air. Once the light faded, the large door began to slowly open up to a dark room. Once they stepped inside, orange and purple flames were lit on several torches within the room and shed some light on it. On the sides of the wall, there are paintings of several different battles going on between different shinobi in history. These walls show the history of the shinobi that Ashura's and Indra's spirit has transmigrated to. Even if it hadn't been for long, at some point, Ashura and Indra saw potential in them. Burrell explained. Madara and the first Hokage we knew already. Sasuke said as he looked on. Even Pervy Sage and Orochimaru, Naruto asked, and everyone sweat-dropped except for Natsu. Ahaha, whoever that is probably deserves that name. Natsu laughed, wiping a tear in his eye. Yeah. One time he told me he was going to look after my training, you know where he is. At the bathhouse spying on women bathing. Naruto complained and Natsu nearly died of laughter. But get this, as revenge I knocked him into the bathhouse using one of my special jutsu. A jutsu that works on pretty much every strong opponent. He boasted and Natsu had stars in his eyes. Can you show us please, Natsu pleaded, and Naruto smirked devilishly as he formed the ram seal. See, Naruto started, but he was interrupted with a smack on the back of the head by the hilt of Sasuke's sword. Naruto got back up in a flash and rolled up his sleeve to his bicep and threatened to beat Sasuke to a pulp. Pay attention, you idiot. Look. The latter said as he pointed to the wall. The former relaxed and looked at the wall that his friend was pointing to. On that wall, there were remnants of all of Naruto and Sasuke's battles all the way up until the back wall. It shows the end of their battle when they were near death, both with one less arm than they came into the battle with. Both with tired smiles on their faces, battered, bruised and bloody, but they looked to be at peace. Wow. I had no idea that you guys fought on this level. Urza said as she was completely astonished from the paintings. Natsu and I fight all the time, but never to a point like this. Gray said. Geez, I thought you guys were supposed to be friends. But it looks like you guys were downright trying to kill each other. Natsu said. It would take forever to explain exactly what happened. Sasuke said. How long ago did you say this place was built? Naruto asked. No one knows exactly, but I'd say at least a few centuries. Lillian answered. So you're telling me? I figured as much. Sasuke sighed. We were sent into the future by a few hundred years, Naruto shouted at the top of his lungs. Soon after he was crouched down with his hands on his head trembling, just completely in shock. But wait, I don't understand. If they're centuries old and they seem to be legends and icons, how come we have never heard of them? Even if it was just a few centuries, the history of shinobi should be well known within Fiori if it's the history of our world. Urza asked. That's a good point, I've never even heard of these two before, but the townspeople cheered as if they were the most important people in the world. Gray commented. I don't get it, Natsu and Happy said as they both scratched their head in confusion. Someone had made it their goal to completely erase the history of shinobi, especially Naruto and Sasuke. As of now, no one knows who did it. But ever since the end of the Fourth Shinobi War and the induction of Ethernano and magic in the world, the precipice of shinobi had begun to falter little by little. Now, we are the only real shinobi village left. The village hidden in the mist. Burrell explained. Although, we aren't really the village hidden in the mist, we might be in the mist's region, but this isn't directly the village you know. This is actually what used to be the village hidden in the leaves. Lillian said and Naruto picked his head up slightly. Don't fret, your dream of becoming Hokage hasn't expired yet. Burrell reassured with a smile. Besides, all the things that you wanted to change when you become Hokage gave already happened. Your friends made it their priority to set your policies in order, knowing that you possibly would not return for a long time. Burrell continued. Naruto's expression didn't change much, but he did see what Burrell was explaining to him. He was happy that his friends wanted to help him that much, but his dream was to become Hokage, and he could become that now if he wanted to. But the Hokage doesn't mean anything if the people don't even know who you and want you in the office simply because of your legacy. It just wasn't right. Sasuke was also feeling some lashes on his heart after hearing that he advanced centuries past his time. Even though the world has remained stable somewhat, it has interfered with the progress of his journey. Although he didn't have much of a relationship with anyone else in the leaf other than Sakura, Kakashi and of course Naruto, it still hit home that he wasn't returning to the same home that he could. The two of them were quietly moping, and it made it awkward for any of the fairy tale members to even want to speak to them. Naruto happy called out, but Natsu stopped him. You two can mop about it later. Right now, you have to get to work. You won't be able to find a way back to your own time, nor will you be able to defend the world from the impending threat if you spend all your time moping. Burrell said, and the two picked up their heads. You guys remember what I told you when I first said my last name. There is a threat that is approaching and they are coming after you. If you do not prepare for them, they will crush you in an instant. These two are an even bigger threat than Kagaya herself. Lillian said. Who's coming for us? Naruto asked. We don't have any names, but they are also members of the Otsutsuki clan. They are so dedicated to capture the both of you, they encase themselves in a crystal in the same fashion that you two were placed in. However, luck is on our side. We're a few years ahead of them, we have reason to believe they will not move for another 2 years or so. Burrell explained. How exactly is it that you know this information? Urza asked. This information has been passed down from Hokage to Hokage ever since a man named Kakashi Haddock was in power. How they received this information is beyond our knowledge, however. Burrell answered. So how do you know this information is accurate if you don't know how they got it? Gray asked. You have a good point, but would you rather prepare and be wrong than be unprepared and be right? He answered, and Gray had no further arguments. Well, that's perfect, now we have a time frame to be aware of when coming back to the guild. Sasuke said. Yosh, I will still become Hokage. I won't give up. That's my ninja way. Still, there's something I don't understand. Why did they have to wait so long to be released from the crystal they were enclosed in? Gray asked. The seal that they were entrapped in had a special requirement that needed to be reached, or else they would still be in there to this day. Burrell started. Kagaya had set that trap in place, with the confidence that the requirements of the seal could never be met. The requirement was for someone who was born with a special eye that had only been known to be acquired between the mixing of specific chakras. That eye, Lillian explained as she began to unwrap the bandages around her eyes. Everyone focused on her eyes with the utmost attention. Is the tense again? Next chapter. Just you wait. I'll be much stronger. Chapter 8. I'll become much stronger. Lillian's pupils and irides were a light blue color and had white floral pattern in them. Most people, they have never even heard of the Tensogen, let alone even knew someone who had acquired it. Burrell explained. The only known way to obtain the Tensogen is to plant the Byakugan of a pure Hyuga into someone who possesses Hamura Otsutsuki's chakra. However, as in the case for myself, someone can be born with it. But to the knowledge and understanding of everyone else, this only happens once every 1,000 years or so. Even still, only the higher-ups in the Otsutsuki clan even know this method. Lillian explained. Naruto and the rest pondered for a moment. So if I've been listening correctly, then this Hamura guy was the last person to obtain this Tensogen or whatever you call it through a natural process. Gray asked, and the siblings both nodded. What exactly does the Tensogen do anyway? Naruto asked, and Lillian's eyes began to glow. Then suddenly Happy and Urza began to glow the same color as her eyes, and they began to float in the air. Whoa, what kind of power is this? Urza asked calmly but definitely quite impressed, while Happy on the other hand he was flailing his arms and legs desperately trying to touch the ground again. It feels too weird to fly without control. Happy whined as she let him down. Everyone was amazed as they saw Urza flying around the room with the grace of an angel. The Tensogen grants me the ability to attract and repel objects with myself as the epicenter. But unlike the Rinnegan, there is no time interval in which I can use this ability. Unfortunately, 2 people are my limit when it comes to flying. Lillian explained as she allowed Urza to drop gracefully onto the ground. That was one of the most interesting fun experiences I've ever had. Thank you. Urza said. Lillian returning the thanks with just a smile. I want to do it too. Me next. Me next. Natsu begged as he bounced around like a child. Then he began to glow and soon he was lifted off the ground. He was laughing and wooing all the way through like a kid on a roller coaster. Such a child. Gray said, pretending to be indifferent about the whole thing. You wanna fly too, don't you? Burrell teased with a smirk. The same you like Krabby Patties, don't you? Squidward smirk. Hey, what gave you that crazy idea? Gray protested before he too was glowing and floating off the ground. He pouted and had an attitude, but before long he having a blast. Can you make yourself fly? Naruto asked and Lillian shook her head. Not in this state. She answered. What do you mean by this state? Sasuke asked. I'm saving that part for last, so I guess I should go ahead and let Burrell explain what else it does, because making 2 people for takes quite a bit of concentration, she answered and stopped Natsu and Gray from nearly crashing into each other. While it doesn't have anywhere near the range of the Byakugan, she does have the near 360 degrees vision. But it does indeed help her to use her boomerang in combat. Burrell explained. A boomerang, huh? I don't think I know anyone who uses those. Urza said. Yes, with the abilities of the Tensigan, she can make the boomerang as sharp as any blade. Since she doesn't have to touch it, it's at no risk to get. Besides, a boomerang and near 360 degrees vision is a great combination. He continued. Seeing as how it's a boomerang, it'll always come back. So she only has to use her powers on it during the throw and during the catch. Sasuke commented. Then she can focus more on other things in a fight, right? Happy asked and Burrell nodded. But that's not all she can do, the latter said as the younger sister slowly let down Natsu and Gray. Out of curiosity, where do you keep your boomerang? Urza asked. You know, I actually don't know either. Burrell said as Lillian turned towards them. Then she held the collar of her shirt with her left hand and reached down into it with her right hand. She dug around her chest area for a little while before pulling out a boomerang almost the height of Burrell's staff. How can you keep it in there? Naruto and Burrell shouted in disbelief. Ahem, I think it's time to show them the best part of the Tensigan's power, don't you think, Lily? Burrell asked, clearing his throat. I can't wait to see this, Lily is awesome. Natsu exclaimed. Okay, everyone stand back. Lily warned and everyone did what they were told. She formed the ram seal, and a light blue-green aura began to radiate around her body. Soon her whole body became like a glowing human made of chakra. Her hair flowed upwards against natural gravity, the same way Daimaria's hair flows in her time god mode. Extremely similar to Naruto's Six Paths transformation, a few truth-seeking balls appeared and floated around her. Everyone was in complete shock, gawking at her transformation. With the exception of Burrell, of course. The amount of power I sense of through the roof. Urza said, flabbergasted along with a wordless Natsu and Gray. It's almost like mine. Naruto marveled at her transformation. Unfortunately, I'm not as good as Naruto-sama yet. I can only make 3 truth-seeking balls. Lillian acknowledged. I've never seen these weird things before, Natsu said with curiosity as he went to poke the truth-seeking ball. Then there was a sound of metal jingling. I can't move. Natsu bellowed as he struggled to move. The truth-seeking ball that was merely inches away from his finger slowly moved away from it. You mustn't touch the black balls that are floating around her. If you do, you'll die. Burrell warned, shocking everyone. What did he do just now to stop Natsu? Sasuke thought as he looked at the ground underneath Natsu. It wasn't shadow possession, he continued. Then he looked up at Burrell's eyes and saw that his Sharingan wasn't activated. It wouldn't matter because Natsu wouldn't have been able to make eye contact anyway. He deduced. Then he looked at the staff that Burrell was holding and everything clicked. In jutsu, not only does he have the Manjikyu Sharingan but has other forms of manipulating people. He's dangerous, Sasuke thought as he watched Burrell carefully. How exactly are those black balls? Instant death? Gray asked. Burrell made the all too familiar hand sign and a clone of himself came into existence. Without even saying anything, Lillian made one of her truth-seeking orbs touch the chest of her older brother's clone and in an instant it turned to dust. Unbelievable. The gap between wizards and shinobi versatility seems endless. Urza said. I want to be a ninja now. Nin. Natsu declared as he wrapped his face with his scarf and formed the ram seal. Happy also imitated Natsu's actions. Magic seems like it can be used for all kinds of things other than fighting though. Naruto said. I want to learn more about our history, the history of shinobi. Urza said, although it sounded more like a declaration than a regular statement. For someone who doesn't know about shinobi, your chakra reserves are pretty high. Lillian said as she deactivated her chakra mode. Really? How's that? Urza asked. I knew it. Naruto crowed and everyone drew their attention towards him. Knew what? Sasuke asked. Red hair. Unusually large chakra reserves. And she's skilled with seals. She must be a long-lost Uzumaki. Naruto accused. Well, if you are in Uzumaki, at least you're not annoying like the ones I've met. Sasuke said and Urza's sweat dropped. Thanks. She said awkwardly. Meanwhile, Naruto was ticked off at the subtle jab that Sasuke just threw at him. However, another idea popped in his head as he smiled sinisterly. Oh? He said you're not annoying. That must mean he likes you. Naruto teased as he nudged her with his elbow and Urza blushed a little, behaving slightly bashfully. What are you talking about, loser? Sasuke asked in an annoyed tone. I mean, who haven't you called annoying other than Urza? Naruto asked, feigning ignorance and innocence. You know, when I think about, he's right. Natsu spoke almost unconsciously. Happy teased, aggressively rolling his tongue. And here I thought you were too cool for something like this. Gray said, feigning disappointment. Burrell watched the argument and soon-to-be chaos ensue amongst the group, sweat dropping in the process. 2 weeks of this? You'd think the shinobi of their caliber would be a bit more intimidating, Burrell said in amazement. Lillian's giggle turned into a full-on laugh as she watched them. Burrell glanced at her from the corner of his eyes. She wore this radiant smile that could illuminate the entire village. A true smile, true laughter, she was really enjoying herself. I haven't seen her laugh like this since our parents died. Okay, that's enough fooling around for now, we have a future to discuss. Burrell said and everyone straightened up. About this message. Do you know what it means? Sasuke asked as held out the black scroll that Lily had made Urza read off of. As far as what it means I don't know. But I can tell you a little bit about Zayden. Burrell said. The only thing that we know about he was created by a shinobi by the name of Orochimaru. And that he was the first Dragon King. Burrell concluded. Orochimaru created him? Why am I even surprised? Naruto asked in disbelief. I don't know who this Orochimaru is personally, but he certainly changed the world with his experiments. Burrell said. Even still, dragons didn't exist in our time. If Orochimaru created Zayden, he shouldn't know who we are because this had to have taken place after we were sealed. Sasuke pointed out. Then again the scroll did say he had a vision. Urza commented. Do you know where his lab is? If we find it we might be able to find out more about Zayden. Naruto asked and Lily shook her head. Honestly hardly anyone knows where anything is because the entire geography of the earth has changed a long time ago. Lily answered. That's right, you did say that this is the hidden leaf in the Mists region. How did that even happen? Sasuke asked. It was caused by a forbidden spell used by wizards, called Universe 1. We assume that the same person who tried to erase the history of shinobi is responsible for it. Orochimaru's lab and many other important things could be on the bottom of the ocean right now. Lily answered and their expression seemed downcast. However Naruto's head perked up when he recalled, wait, I just remembered something. Sasuke, do you have that book? Sasuke pulled the book out of his cloak and handed it to him. Do you guys know anything about this book? Naruto asked as he shoved the book into their faces. No, I don't know this book. Why is it special? Burrell asked. There's only 13 pages and they're all blank. Naruto said as he opened the book to him and flipped the pages. Burrell took the book from him and looked at the cover. Rokushadame? Who is that? Oh, so you don't know either, Naruto said, clear disappointment in his tone. Burrell looked at the pages of the book and activated his Sharingan. My Sharingan can't see anything so there's no hidden message as far as I see. He said. What are you talking about? There's a number right there. Lily said, pointing to the blank page. I guess only the Rinnegan and Tenseigan can't see it. Which makes my theory even more plausible. Sasuke said. What theory? That Rokushadame is the sage of 6 paths. Naruto answered. That's not a bad assumption, but what could he be trying to hide that he'd go as far as this? Burrell asked. I don't think he could have even made this book seeing as how he disappeared after our battle with Kagaya. Sasuke answered. Thump. Everyone's turned towards the noise and they saw Natsu prone with swirls in his eyes. Natsu is unable to battle. Happy declared, raising his hand like a referee. Poor Natsu, seems like his brain can't handle all this information. Lily giggled. Anyway, I think we should just try to live life as normally as possible until the time comes when we have to deal with those guys. Naruto suggested. That's the most logical thing to do at this moment. Urza said. Out of curiosity, what exactly happened to the other villages? Sasuke asked. Like our village, they were all just moved to different locations. Except for one. Lillian answered and everyone including Natsu perked at her words. Over 400 years ago, the black dragon of the apocalypse, Acnologia, completely annihilated the hidden cloud along with the majority of the land of lightning. She continued. What? One creature destroyed nearly entire nation. Urza questioned as her eyes nearly bugged out of her head. But why? Gray asked. No one knows. Most assume that it destroyed the village because of sheer whim. Burrell answered and Natsu started to walk off. Where are you going? Urza asked. I'm going to find that dragon and ask it where Igneel is. Natsu answered. You don't even know where it is and even if you did, you're a dragon slayer. Acnologia would gladly destroy you, so there's even less of a risk of him being slain. Gray warned. Acnologia is responsible for wiping out nearly an entire nation all by itself. What makes you think you can defeat someone like that? Sasuke interrogated. Well, I won't know until I try. Natsu shouted as he continued to walk out, at least until Naruto tired on his scarf. He's just as stubborn as you are. Sasuke said to Naruto. You need to calm down. As long as you don't give up, you'll find Igneel. Acnologia destroyed the Cloud Village over 400 years ago and hasn't done anything noteworthy since then. Acnologia might not even exist anymore. Naruto said trying to calm Natsu down. The latter hit the pillar with the side of his fist and cursed, damn it. Now that we know some major details that have happened since we've been gone, I have one more question to ask. Naruto said, bringing the attention back towards him. What happened to the other tailed beasts? Kurama said that he couldn't contact the rest of them. Honestly, we don't know. Some believe that they've been scattered across the world when Universe 1 was activated. Burrell answered. Maybe they've been captured. Sasuke chimed in. I hope not, but that's most likely the case. I don't even know what to do. Naruto said as his expression became downcast. There's so many things that are unclear and so many things that are blank in the times between now and when we were around. Sasuke added. The best way to start searching for answers is to first learn about the current world that you live in. It's harder to understand how and why before you know the answer to what. Burrell said and Lily nodded. Well, there's no point in sitting around and complaining. It's time to get moving. Gray said. Hold on. Before we go, I have one last thing to ask. Naruto said as his stomach began to growl and everyone's sweat dropped. Would Ichiraku's happen to still be around? He asked as Good's stomach growled loudly again. Actually it is. It's in the middle. Lily started to answer, but Naruto had no desire to wait any longer as he disappeared, leaving only a distorted after-image of himself behind. I don't think I've seen someone move so fast they leave behind an after-image. Gray said. Well, we've had a long 2-week trip, I'd say we can relax a little before we head back. Urza said. So the gang caught up with Naruto and decided that they would spend a few days before returning to Magnolia. 2.5 weeks later. We're finally back home. Natsu announced as he stretched his arms out above his head. Relish this moment while you can. It'll be 2 years before you come back here. Urza advised. We leave tomorrow morning. It's best for you to say your goodbyes now. Sasuke said as they started walking towards the guild. As they walked through the town of Magnolia, they noticed that the streets were uncharacteristically empty. Where is everyone? Happy asked. I don't think I've seen Magnolia so deserted before. Urza added. Soon after, dark clouds began to form over Magnolia. Soft sounds of thunder was heard throughout town as the group decided to head to the guild hall with more haste. They swiftly opened the doors to the guild and what they saw was not what they had expected at all. The always lively fairy tale guild was nowhere near the reputation it had gained. Everyone sat around with a depressed look in their eyes. Murahin and Elfman stood not that far ahead of their group. Murahin turned around slightly to face them and they noticed that she had a broken arm. Elfman was trembling and his shoulders were pulsing up and down while his head hung low. It was so quiet everyone was able to hear Elfman's tears fall to the ground. What happened? Urza implored, seeing the condition of Murahin and feeling the emotion of everyone in the guild. Boy, where's Lisana? Natsu gulped, taking a huge pause in his question. He didn't see Lisana and he didn't catch whiff of her scent either. Praying to himself that she just happened to be out on a job by herself and something else happened. Lisana died. Murahin answered and everyone flinched at the news. A moment of silence fell upon the guild once again. No one really knew how to react after hearing the news that precious comrade has fallen. With the exception of a few people, no one in the guild had experienced a death of a close friend since they joined the Fairy Tail Guild. Lisana wasn't just Murahin and Elfman's younger sibling, she was Fairy Tail's little sister. Everyone adored the youngest of the Strauss siblings like she was their own. She always kept a bright smile, lifting everyone's spirits even in the toughest times. Natsu's lip curled upwards as he tried to hold back his tears. Honestly, Lisana was his first real friend when he came to Fairy Tail. Urza was like a super scary older sister and Gray was just a boy that he never got along with. She helped him hatch Happy and take care of him when he was first born. She was by far the friendliest person he had ever met in his life, even more than Igneel. But now she's gone forever. Damn it. Natsu cursed as loud as he could while he ran out of the guild hall. He ran until he tripped. He slammed his fist on the ground in frustration, but when he looked ahead of him his eyes began to shimmer. It was a small straw hut, built to be big enough for a few children to fit in. This is. Flashback. Young Natsu was carrying the egg that Happy would later be hatched out of under his shirt into the small straw hut. A young Lisana was inside waiting for him to return and once he did her eyes lit up. Welcome home Natsu. She happily greeted. Oh, right Natsu indifferently responded. Welcome. Homie. Lisana repeated with a very irritated expression which caused Natsu to flinch. I am home. Natsu said. Flashback end. Lisana, are you really? Flashback. What is this? Natsu asked as Lisana placed white flowers and kneeled down in front of a handmade grave. This is the grave that Elfman built himself for his parakeet that died. Lisana said as she had a quick prayer. He built this himself. Pretty creative. Natsu complimented the elder brother in a very nonchalant way. Once Lisana was finished with her prayer she turned slightly to Natsu and with the most innocent eyes ever she asked, Hey Natsu. When I die, will you make my grave for me? Then flashback. Natsu's tears began to flow like waterfalls as he sobbed on his hands and knees. Then the rain started to pour down on the city of Magnolia. Fairy Tail's influence over the town seemed to even affect the weather in the area. And it seemed as though the tears of the entire guild would rain upon the city on that day as they mourned the death of the adored little sister. Splash. Natsu heard the splash sound but didn't even bother to turn around. However, he did get up, but he still held his head down. People that knew Natsu, they knew that it wasn't easy to break Natsu emotionally. Sure, he had his angry outburst and there may have been other sad times in the guild. But until now, he had never broken down and cried uncontrollably. There's nothing I could tell you to make you feel better. All I can do is just be here for you, not only as your new master, but as your friend. Naruto said in an effort to try and comfort Natsu, who remained motionless. Susanoo was a person who made you believe there's no way they could die. He answered in an extremely low voice. Had Naruto been any further away, he wouldn't have been able to hear him. My old master, Jiraiya-sensei, was someone who I also believed never could die. When I found out about his death and immediately wanted to get revenge. One bad move and I could have been fallen into hatred. When a man learns to love, he must bear the risk of hatred. Naruto said as he walked up next to Natsu, who still didn't budge an inch. Please, don't hate anyone. No matter what. Naruto pleaded and Natsu turned to him. Losing a comrade, Natsu quivered as his emotions began to get the better of him once again. He turned away from Naruto as his tears began to flow out again. Nothing's more painful. The next morning, Natsu was back at the same spot with his travel gear, with him placing a large object into the ground. It was a coffin-shaped tombstone with a fairy tale insignia carved onto it. And right under it read, "Here lies Susanoo, little sister to all and friend to animal souls." He also placed the same white flowers that she had placed on the grave of Elfman's parakeet onto her grave as well. "Hey Natsu. There's a grave by the church, where are you putting one here?" Happy asked. "She doesn't belong in a place like that. Besides, if she's here she can watch the sunset as much as she wants. She'd enjoy that." Natsu answered. "Aye sir. It's all my fault. I tried to do a complete takeover and I lost control of myself and I killed Susanoo." Elfman sobbed uncontrollably, standing a short distance away from Natsu and Happy. "So what?" Natsu growled lowly. "You think this is what Susanoo would want? For all of us to sit around and cry like a bunch of babies?" "Natsu? No, she'd want us to keep smiling like she always would. So be a man and live life proudly for her." Natsu snapped at Elfman, which turned his sobbing into whimpering. "I'll see you in 2 years," Natsu said as he walked by him and put his hand on Elfman's shoulder, smiling along the way. This moment moved in slow motion for Elfman as it gave him a sense of calmness. Marahin watched the whole scene transpire, hiding behind a nearby tree. Her hair shadowed her eyes, but a small smile began to creep over her face as well while she walked off. Naruto and Sasuke waited for Natsu and Gray in front of the guild hall. All of the guild members had gathered in front of the hall, also in order to perform a temporary farewell to their comrades. Gray was the first to show up, of course, and nothing but on the top half of his body, but his traveling bag. "Gray, where are the rest of your clothes?" Kana asked and Gray panicked, scrambling looking for his missing clothes. "Please try to cure his habit while you're gone," Levi asked. "Will do," Naruto and Sasuke croused. Then Natsu came along with Happy and joined everyone else. Natsu noticed the entire guild standing there as well and asked, "What's this all about?" "We're here to see you off," Makarov said as he stepped in front of the crowd. Urza then showed up with her ginormous amount of luggage and everyone was looked at her confusingly. What are you doing?" Naruto asked. "I'm coming along with you. I want to hone my skills as well," Urza answered and Sasuke motioned for her to come towards him. When she was within arm's length he poked her forehead and said, "Sorry, maybe next time." "Why can't I come?" she whined whilst sporting a hardly noticeable blush. "We're depending on you to protect the guild in our absence. Nothing personal." Gray smiled. "Alright, it's time to hit the road," Natsu said as he began walking towards the city's border. The rest of the group began to follow Natsu's action and walking. They waved goodbye with smiles on their faces, although they've just experienced a tragic loss, they're following in the late Susanoo's footsteps, maintaining a smile no matter what. "See you guys later. Have a safe trip. Work hard Natsu or even we'll be able to beat you. Please don't destroy anything. When I come back. In 2 years. I'll be much stronger." Natsu and Gray's thoughts chorused. In a land far far lies the kingdom of Fiori, a small peaceful nation of 17 million and a place filled with magic. Found in every home, bought and sold in every marketplace, for most magic is merely a tool, a mundane part of everyday life. For some, however, magic is an art and they have devoted their lives to its practice. These are the mages. Banded together into magical guilds, they apply their skills in search of fame and fortune. Many such guilds dot the landscape of Fiori. But there is a certain guild in a certain town that soars high above the rest, one from which countless legends have been born, a guide that will no doubt continue to create legends well into the future. Its name is Fairy Tail. "Is this really the only magic shop in the whole town?" a girl in her late teens asked the owner. She has brown eyes and shoulder-length blonde hair that is tied by a ribbon that was blue in color in a small ponytail to the right side of her head, with the rest of the hair loose. She wore a sleeveless white-collared shirt that had blue along all the edges of the shirt. Along with a blue skirt and brown belt that she kept her pouch with an assortment of keys on it, she also wore knee-high black high-heeled boots. This girl's name is Lucy. Yes ma'am, but as you can see we have an assortment of magical items here. Ones that can instantly change the color of your clothes. The owner began to ramble on and on about different items that Lucy didn't particularly care for. I don't really care about that stuff. All I really want is. Lucy's thoughts were interrupted when the shop owner finally presented something to her that piqued her interests. That's a silver gate key. White doggy. I've been looking for one like this. Lucy gasped when her eyes laid on said item. Yes, the very same, although it's not very powerful. The owner responded and Lucy's eyes began to shimmer with joy. Hey old man, how much for this key? Lucy inquired. 20,000 jewel. The owner said flatly and Lucy's face faltered. How much did you say it was? 20,000 jewel. He answered, maintaining the same leisurely attitude. Lucy sat on top of the counter and placed one leg up on it in a very seducing manner. She ran her finger along her long, smooth porcelain skin and asked in a very seductive voice, is it really that much, Mr. Nice Uncle? And to top off her seduction attempt she added a wink. Screw that old man. He only knocked 1,000 jewel off the price. Is my sexual appeal really only worth 1,000 jewel? Lucy cursed as she stormed through the public streets of Harjan. She walked along an overpass that was in the middle of town and when she looked down, she saw a large group of people gathered in one area. Meanwhile, the scheduled arriving train had just pulled into Harjan from Shiratsum. 4 young men and a blue cat stepped off the train. Well, the one with the pink hair crawled out of the train with as much strength as he had left. I never want to ride a train again. He groaned as he turned more and more green around the gills. By the second. Having motion sickness is a pretty strange weakness to have. Natsu. Happy belittled his longtime best friend. Natsu's outfit hadn't changed much, except for the fact that the vest that he once wore was replaced with an open collar, long-sleeved overcore version of his previously worn vest. The sleeve covers Natsu's left arm with a faux leather brown armband, leaving his fairy tale mark, as well as his entire right arm, consequently exposed. Natsu continues wearing Igneal's scarf and retains the same lower clothing with the exception of his feet, in which he now wears black high calf boots. Only one more day until we get to Magnolia. Naruto yawned as he stretched, shaking off the dust from the long train ride. I heard that Salamander is in this town. Isn't that amazing? I hope that I get to see him, he's such a big deal. The big salamander? This town? Natsu's thoughts were incoherent and distorted due to his motion sickness, but there was no mistaking those few words. An instant he got up and approached the women while still being green around the gills. Where is this salamander? Huh? Natsu groggily asked, which horrified the women and caused them to run away screaming. Natsu, could you please not cause any trouble today? Naruto requested as he watched Natsu groggily walk out of the station like a man who had one too many cups of sake. Come back to the inn before it's too late. Sasuke said and Natsu lazily waved back without even looking. I'm gonna make my way over to this town's ramen shop. Although, some of Mira's ramen would be nice right about now. Naruto drooled as he began to jog towards his desired destination. Gray and Sasuke just looked at each other and sighed before they too went their own separate directions. Natsu walked through town and saw some women running towards a spot in town, talking about Salamander being spotted somewhere in that area, so he decided to follow them. He followed them until they came upon a huge crowd and they all happened to be women. They were surrounding this relatively tall and slim man with mildly short spiky hair jutting outwards, with a long fringe left hanging over the upper left part of his face. He possesses a mildly rectangular face with sharp features, dark eyes and thin, dark eyebrows. His most distinctive facial feature is most likely the dark tattoo covering the right part of his forehead, just above his right eyebrow, this being highly reminiscent of a thin, stylized pair of tongs placed horizontally, with the handles pointing towards his right. Why is my heart beating so fast around this guy? Is it because he's a famous wizard? Lucy panicked within her mind as her heart moved at a mile a minute. Excuse me, sorry, passing through Igneal. Natsu politely crawled his way through the entire crowd and once he exited he looked up at this man who claimed himself to be Salamander. This man stared at Natsu nervously while Natsu squinted his eyes, drilling holes into his being. Who the heck are you? Natsu questioned and everyone in the crowd gasped. Meanwhile something in Lucy's mind shattered and she was finally able to think straight again. Would the name Salamander ring a bell to you? He asked, but Natsu had already walked away from him before he even finished his question. This man's eyes grew to the size of dinner plates in reaction to Natsu's complacency towards him. You could tell this man was used to being the center of attention. Lucy stood there confused for a moment while all of the women in the crowd decisively put a beating on Natsu and effectively threw him out of the crowd. "How dare you disrespect Salamander like that? Don't you know who he is?" shouted many women amongst the mob against Natsu. "Ladies, please. I'm sure he didn't mean anything by it," the man known as Salamander reassured them. Then he pulled out a blank white card and put his signature on it. All the ladies were instantly wooed by him again, cheering on and on about how Salamander was the coolest wizard ever. Meanwhile Lucy glared at him to no end, seemingly disgusted with this man. "Here, use this and brag to all your friends." Salamander smiled, handing his autograph to Natsu. "No thanks." Natsu said flatly and all the women beat on him again. "Guess he wasn't here after all." Happy said sarcastically. "Geez, what was that for?" Natsu grumbled as he rubbed the lumps on his head. "All of you ladies, you're all invited to the party on my boat tonight. Make sure you stop by." Salamander said as he rode a wave of purple fire and flashily made his exit. All the women watched with awe and followed him in every direction that he would go. "Who was that guy?" Natsu questioned as he watched him fly off. "He was a real creep." Natsu heard the feminine voice and turned towards her. Lucy was smiling and waved at him. "Thanks." "Thanks for what?" Natsu asked as he looked at Happy confused. "Harjan Restaurant. My name's Lucy." Natsu and Happy was it? Lucy greeted. Natsu was chowing down like an animal on a mountain of food that Lucy had so graciously bought them. Happy, of course, following in his first friend's footsteps was chowing down on a mountain of fish. They ate so rapidly and uncivilized that they were splashing the remains of the food that didn't enter their digestive trace all over the table, floor, and unfortunately Lucy. "You're really nith." Natsu lisped, from the effect of attempting to speak with his mouth full. "Well, there goes the 1000 jewel I managed to save on that gate key," she thought as Bone hit her square in the cheek. "That Salamander guy was using a charm spell back there. It can attract people to you, even if it's against their own will. They were banned years ago though. To go that far just to be popular, what a creep. But when you barged in, the spell broke, so this is my thanks." Lucy explained. "Oh okay. Believe it or not, I'm a wizard too." "Oh, yeah? Although I haven't really joined a guild yet." Lucy said and she started to explain about magical guilds and what they mean for Fiori. Blah blah blah. She also went on and on about a certain guild that she wanted to join and how it would be so exciting for her if she were able to, and Happy looked at each other with a slightly annoyed look as she continued to ramble on. Happy had dropped a fish under the table and took that time to pick it up. "No fish will go to waste," he would say. Bray happened to be walking by, eating a large cup of lemon-flavored shaved ice, and he caught Natsu in the corner of his eye eating with Lucy. She seemed to be so excited talking to Natsu, and he seemed to be enjoying whatever it was she was talking about. Natsu and a girl showing mutual interest in each other. Gray thought as he continued to watch the scene. She's pretty damn cute too. "I'll just mind my business for now though. It's getting pretty late, so I'll just go to the inn." "That reminds me, weren't you guys looking for someone?" Lucy asked. "We heard that a salamander was coming through this town." "A salamander's a fire dragon, so we thought it might be Igneal," Happy answered. "But that guy was no salamander, he couldn't even breathe fire," Natsu criticized. "What kind of person would look like a fire dragon?" Lucy asked, sweat dropping. "Igneal doesn't just look like a dragon, he is a dragon," Natsu answered. "Why would a giant fire-breathing dragon be in the middle of town?" Lucy questioned, while Natsu and Happy sat there with shocked faces. "You mean to tell me you're just thinking of that now?" Lucy was shocked herself at the lack of logical thinking from these two individuals. She put money down on the table and got up from her seat. "Well, I have to go now, enjoy the rest of your food," Lucy said, and as she was walking away one of the waitresses was giving her an awkward look. She turned around and saw Natsu and Happy bowing down on all fours, thanking her for the food. "You're embarrassing me. Look, you helped me and I fed you. We're even now, Kay," Lucy said with a red cloud dusting her face. "But we weren't even trying to help her," Natsu whispered to Happy. "Oh I know," Natsu said as he dug into his pockets and pulled out his salamander autograph. "You can have this." He smiled. "I don't want it." Lucy was laying on a bench reading a copy of Sorcerer's Weekly. Fairy Tail is causing trouble again. How the heck did they manage to destroy a whole mountain? Ooh, oh, I want to join them so bad. Lucy said to herself out loud as she shook with excitement. "So you want to join the Fairy Tail Guild, huh?" a man asked, and Lucy looked up from her magazine and recognized him as that salamander guy. "You can't charm me again. That magic's weakness is awareness," Lucy exclaimed, and she got ready to defend herself. "No, it's not like that all. I was just overhearing you and thought to myself, she'd be a good fit. I Fairy Tail," he said in a very convincing voice. "Wait, you're in Fairy Tail?" Lucy questioned, getting excited. "That's right." "And if you come to my party tonight, I promise to put in a good word for you with our master," he answered. Hook, line, and sinker. Lucy didn't have to hear another word from him. "I'll be there, but only if you really help me get into fairy tale. You have my word." Later that evening, Natsu and Happy were looking over a railing somewhere high up in the town that had a nice ocean view. "It's getting late, Happy, we should get going." Aye. They were getting ready to leave, but then they overheard two women talking about salamander again. Under any other circumstance, Natsu would have just ignored it, but it was something that they said that really caught his attention. "I really wish I could have went to Salamander's party tonight. I heard he's a member for Fairy Tail." "I know. He's such a famous wizard." "Fairy Tail, huh?" Natsu thought. "Sorry, Happy, but looks like we're going to be a little late," Natsu said. Meanwhile, Salamander had already taken all of the women that were at his party under control, Lucy included. "You're an evil man. Using a fake name to capture all of these people." Lucy cursed and he just laughed it off. "Who cares? You won't be talking much when you're Bosco being a slave," he said. "Hey Bora, what should we do with these?" one of his henchmen asked, holding up Lucy's celestial spirit keys. "I thought I told you not to call me that in front of others." "Hey. Give me back my keys," Lucy demanded. "Oh? She's got a few gold keys. They'll make us quite a fortune," Bora answered. "I know you now. You're Bora the Prominence, a wizard that got kicked out of the Titan Nose Guild for bad behavior. Now I see why," Lucy accused and he flipped his hair. "That's me." Suddenly someone came crashing in through the rooftop of the yacht. Everyone covered their eyes to avoid any debris flying into their eyes and mouths. "What the?" Bora questioned, and once the dust finally settled, Natsu was standing there with a scowl on his face. "Natsu?" Lucy called out and he immediately dropped to the ground due to motion sickness. "That's so lame. Where's Natsu?" Sasuke asked as Naruto came in through the door of the inn, belly swollen from being full of ramen. "Is he not back yet?" Naruto asked. "Last time I saw him, he was in a restaurant on a date with some chick," Gray commented and everyone froze. Natsu Sasuke started. "On a date?" Naruto finished. A pregnant silence filled the air before a simultaneous PFFFF noise came from every single one of them. "There's no way," Naruto said and they heard a huge crash and explosion come from outside. They all sighed Natsu. On the shore of Harjan, a gigantic wave caused by Aquarius, one of Lucy's celestial spirit, had forced the ship to run ashore. The least she could do is work on her attitude. Lucy shouted and Happy was slumped over. "Aye," he uttered weakly. "Prominence whip," Bora declared and a stream of purple fire flowed from his hand. Like the name of the attack implies, he used it in order to try and detain Natsu. However, Natsu opened his mouth wide and began to chow down on the fire. "What? He can eat fire?" Lucy questioned, amazed by Natsu's talent. "Aye, we forgot to mention it, but Natsu's a wizard too. Thanks for the meal." Natsu burped and fire began to surround him. "You said you were from Fairy Tail, huh?" Natsu asked as he threw off his burgundy jacket. His red fairy tail mark exposed and shining for all those to see. "Well, I've never seen you a day in my life," he declared. Bora instantly became more and more afraid of him. In a panicked attempt to veer him off, he used his largest scale attack. "Prominence Typhoon," he declared and gigantic wall of purple flames cut off the entire shore and engulfed Natsu. However, just like the first time, Natsu easily just absorbed all of the fire that Bora put forth. Using all of the extra energy that he got, Natsu leaped to the point where he was several feet above Bora, who happened to be using his red carpet to fly around with. "Don't overdo it, Natsu," Happy said as he took Lucy and got some distance away from the shore, much to her dismay. "Fire Dragon's Roar," Natsu declared as a gargantuan breath of fire erupted from his mouth and engulfed Bora. Even from the distance they were at, Happy and Lucy could both feel the heat from Natsu's attack. "How on earth is he so strong?" Lucy asked as sweat was running down her forehead. Once the fire had subsided, it left a giant crater in the sand. Happy and Lucy flew over towards Natsu and the crater and saw Bora, who burned so badly he just looked like a human sculpture made out of ash. His fire was so hot he turned the sand into glass. Lucy was absolutely stunned that a man this powerful was in the Fairy Tail Guild that she had longed to join. Up until now, she hasn't even met anyone so powerful, let alone be friends with them. "Don't ever pretend to be in Fairy Tail again," Natsu coldly warned. "What the heck happened here?" a voice asked from behind the trio. They turned and saw Naruto, Sasuke, and Gray. "Wait, you two are Naruto and Sasuke, two of Fairy Tail's most elite wizards." Lucy acquiesced and Naruto rubbed the back of his head in embarrassment. "Geez, I didn't expect to be that famous already." "So much for keeping a low profile," Naruto said. "Anyone who blows up a mountain should be famous," Gray said. Suddenly they heard the marching of many iron boots coming their way. When they looked, it was the royal army of Fiori looking to take them into custody. There they are. They're the ones who was causing all of that trouble. The leader of them all shouted as they began to pick up their speed. Oh man, now we have to run. Naruto groaned. Natsu grabbed Lucy's hand and said, "Welp, nothing we can do about it." "Hey, what are you doing? Let go of me." Lucy demanded, and Natsu looked back at her and smiled. "You wanted to join Fairy Tail, right? So come on." She was stunned for a moment before shaking her hand free of his grip. "Yeah." Somewhere in a remote location. There was a flashing blue light that shined very subtly from a cave. Inside it there were two people entrapped inside of a crystal, although it wasn't very clear on who was inside. A counter appeared near the top of the crystal that read 4D23H 59 meters 59s. Natsu and the rest had run away from the army all the way from Harjan to the outskirts of Magnolia. "That was close," Natsu panted as he bent over with his hands on his knees, trying to catch his breath. Everyone was breathing just as hard as Natsu after running so far for so long. "I think I'm gonna die." Lucy did her best to try and recapture all of the oxygen and energy she lost from that insanely long run. Gray grabbed Natsu by the collar and lifted him up. "You idiot. If you didn't make such a scene, we wouldn't have had to run all the way back to Magnolia." He barked. "He was the one who started it, so put me down, Ice Princess." Natsu barked right back and the two began their normal routine. How could those two complain about being tired and still have so much energy to fight each other? Lucy questioned. "That's Natsu and Gray for you," Happy sighed, finally regaining his breath. "Come on, we're only a short ways away. Let's get moving." They began their trek once more down towards Magnolia, and Lucy could hardly contain her excitement. My chance to join Fairy Tail has finally arrived. She thought as she began to analyze each of them. I read that newspaper article about them from 2 years ago. I can't believe I just happened to run into them on my way here. She thought. However, her musings were interrupted when Naruto decided properly introduce themselves to her. "You seem to know who we are, but we don't know exactly who you are. What's your name?" Naruto asked with a warm smile. Lucy was nervous. She could tell that they were nice people, but to be around the people she's admired for quite a while so suddenly made her feel a bit giddy. My name's Lucy," she answered nervously. "Lucy, huh? Well, it's nice to meet you, Lucy." He smiled and she smiled back. "That's the girl that I saw Natsu with back in Harjan." Gray whispered to Naruto, and immediately his eyes became full of mischief. His smile with troublemaker written all over it. "So, Lucy, I heard that you and Natsu were on a dinner date last night. Are you guys dating or what?" Naruto asked, grinning like the big prankster that he was, causing Lucy to blush wildly. "And no, it wasn't like that at all. He saved me from that creep salamander and I bought food for him as gratitude." Lucy quickly defended herself from the accusations, waving her hands and shaking her head in rapid motion. "Is that true, Natsu?" Naruto asked, and Natsu wore a thoughtful look. I think it went something like that." He mused. "That happened yesterday, how could you forget already?" Lucy demanded, and all Natsu did was pick his ears in a nonchalant manner. Meanwhile, Naruto was having the laugh of his life right now at the expense of this girl. Even Sasuke, who was not known for laughing much, had a chuckle here and there. Gray just held a satisfied look the entire time. After a few more moments they were finally back in the shopping district of Magnolia. "So this is Magnolia." Lucy marveled the town's atmosphere. Active and full of energy, just like the guild that was occupying this town. "They say the guild controls the atmosphere of the town," Gray said. "Aye. Happy guild, happy town. I do have to ask, were you guys coming from a job when you came into Harjan?" Lucy asked. "Nope, we're coming from a 2-year training trip," Natsu answered. "Training trip, for what?" she asked. "To get stronger, duh," he answered, and Lucy smacked her forehead in annoyance. "I know, to get stronger, but why?" she asked. "To protect our contracts. Simple." Gray answered, and everyone looked at Lucy with smiles. "You're gonna be a member of Fairy Tail soon, so you're our comrade too," Natsu said. "Right. The first thing I want to do is get a place to live, we've basically been homeless for 2 years. And get a nice bowl of ramen," Naruto said. Inside the Fairy Tail Guild, it happened to be one of their rare peaceful days. Everyone was either sitting around, either eating, drinking, chatting, or just a combination of the three. Master Makarov was sitting down on the counter enjoying the rare peaceful day that they were having. "It's even more peaceful than usual today, isn't it, Master?" Murahin asked. Ever since Lysana died, she started to work even harder as a server in the guild. Her demeanor had also changed from her mean, tough and aggressive tomboyish personality to one that was more ladylike. Even her style of clothing changed to match her personality. Now she was wearing a maroon-colored dress with frills on them and matching shoes. One could even say that her smile radiated just as much as Lysana's did. "Yeah, it's a bit too peaceful." That can only mean one thing, he answered, and Marahin gave him a curious look. Those fools are due back at any time. The doors of the guild hall slowly creaked open and the sunlight beamed into everyone's eyes. The only thing that could really be seen were the shadows of 6 individuals. Who is that? Levy questioned and a cloud passed over, giving everyone's eyes a break. There stood the 4 young, and not so young, men and blue cat and blonde young lady who seemed to be shaking in her boss in the doorway. Yo, we're home. Natsu grinned from ear to ear, waving to his fellow guildmates that he hasn't seen in 2 years. Everyone was frozen, taking on the surprise that had just walked through the doors of their home. Hardly a second later they all rushed the group with tears in their eyes and their arms stretched out for an embrace. They all cried out, Natsu. Gray. They mauled the group with their love to the point where they had trouble breathing. They bombarded them with endless questions about their adventures and how much stronger have they gotten since they left. Whoa guys, one at a time. Gray requested. Makarov cleared his throat loudly and everyone focused their attention towards him. You know, you kids caused a lot of trouble for me while you were gone. Makarov said in his strict parent tone. Natsu and Gray chuckled sheepishly while rubbing the back of their heads. However, Makarov smiled warmly at them and asked, did you have fun? Natsu and Gray looked at him confusingly for a second. Yeah. They smiled. Alright then, Mira, bring out the booze. Let's party. Makarov declared and the guild erupted into cheers. Makarov noticed Lucy standing there, looking really nervous and asked, how can I help you, young lady? Lucy was about to answer him, but Natsu decided to speak up for her instead. Her name's Lucy Gramps, she said she was dying to join Fairy Tail. He said, making Lucy feel a bit bashful. Well, that's great then. Mira, get this girl a stamp. Makarov ordered as he made his way to the railing on the upper floor in the guild hall. Marahin approached Lucy with a stamp in her hand and asked her where she wanted her guild mark to be. It's really Marahin in the flesh. I read about you in Sorcerer's Weekly all the time. It's such an honor to meet you. Lucy gasped, shaking in excitement as she held out her right hand. Mira smiled as she placed the stamp on the back of Lucy's hand and when she removed it, it left a bright pink fairy tale mark. Lucy hadn't felt so excited about anything her life as she looked at her guild mark with the biggest smile she could make. She ran over to Natsu holding up her right hand to show off her mark. Look Natsu, I got my guild mark now. Lucy beamed. Yeah, that's nice Luigi. It's Lucy. Makarov stood on top of the railing on the 2nd floor of the guild hall and whistled as loud as he could to get the attention of his guild. Once he got their attention and they were all quiet, he cleared his throat and began to give a speech. Today is a very special day in Fairy Tail. We not only welcome back the Dunderheads we all know and love from their 2-year tenure away from the guild, but to also welcome Lucy, our newest member. Makarov said and the guild erupted into cheers once more. Although they might cause a massive amount of trouble. Although they might make me have to write countless letters of apologies to the council. They are the prime examples of how wizards should live. They live with no fear, no hesitation, and live their life to the fullest. If we constantly worry about who is watching us and we will not leave ourselves room to grow as individuals. Because living freely is what Fairy Tail's all about. Makarov finished and the guild erupted into the biggest cheer of the day. They sang, they ate, they drank, and had the most merry time of their lives. Although they had to stop Natsu from getting into alcohol a few times, based on a story that Gray told them. They shared stories of their adventures during the 2 years that they were gone. Yeah, we actually happened to run into Kana while she was out on a job once. Gray said. That was one of the funniest and probably the scariest time I've ever had around these guys. Kana hiccuped, drinking as she would do every single day. Don't even remind me, Naruto said somberly. We almost died a few times during that trip. Gray said and everyone was shocked to hear that. Was the training that harsh? Makarov asked and Gray shook his head in decline. Natsu punched Gray into the wall of a bathhouse once. Gray's head got stuck in the wall and all the ladies thought he was peeping. You can guess what happened next. Naruto snickered and everybody else laughed along with him. I thought we would never speak of that again. Gray yelled and everyone continued to laugh. Ha! Gray, you're so lame. Natsu taunted as he continued to laugh at the ice wizard's pain. What about that time Natsu got eaten by the same shark twice? Sasuke asked with a deadpan expression and everyone began to laugh even louder. Why would you even bring that up? Natsu wept tears as the laughter was suddenly shifted in his direction. You got eaten by the same shark twice and I'm lame? Gray laughed at his rival and they began butting heads like they always do. Shooting off lame insults like Pinky or Stripper. I'm just realizing it, but where's Urza? Sasuke asked. She went out on a job yesterday actually, so you just missed her. Mira answered. It's because she's a man. Elfman declared and everyone questioned, what the heck does that even mean? I want to fight Urza. I want to show her just how strong I've gotten. Natsu said excitedly. Almost a week had passed since those four returned and Lucy joined the guild. During this time Natsu had saved Mikao from Mount Hakab and Lucy went on her first job to destroy a book called Daybreak. Unfortunately the job didn't go so well because they didn't get paid. Natsu, Lucy and Happy were on their way back to Magnolia after completing the job. I could have gotten that 2 million jewel but no. Lucy complained. You should have just let me burn the book, but no, I wanna read it first. Natsu mocked Lucy right back. So it's my fault that you don't have a taste for literature? Lucy spat back. No, but it's your fault we didn't get paid. Happy said. I don't need your comments, Lucy said, hanging her head. They arrived to Lucy's recently purchased apartment and the group went their separate ways. When Lucy opened the door to the lobby of her building, the sight she saw was pretty peculiar. She saw Naruto banging on the first door to the right. Boy Sasuke, do you have any soap? I forgot to buy some and the shops are closed. Naruto asked. He noticed Lucy standing in front of the main door of the lobby. Oh Lucy, I didn't see you there, what are you doing here? Naruto asked. I was just about to ask you the same thing, Naruto-san. Lucy responded and Naruto waved her off. Just Naruto is fine, we're comrades and I'm only like a year older than you. Although that's not exactly true, Naruto said. Suddenly the door Naruto was banging on opened and a bar of soap came flying out and struck Naruto right in the head. If you're going to bang on someone's door like that, at least have better reflexes to dodge or catch that could have been a shuriken. Idiot. Sasuke said as he stepped out the room slightly. Naruto recovered and they immediately started butting heads. You trying to start something, chicken head bastard? Naruto growled. Start? It's already over. Sasuke said with an extremely smug expression. I'm about to wipe that grin off your face. Naruto growled before a presence appeared behind them and said. I'm going to wipe both of you off the face of the planet if you continue to fight in my lobby. It was the landlady. She was a pretty large, intimidating woman with short purple hair and she had facial hair. Right now she was wearing a regular pair of jeans with a white button-up shirt. She was wearing black shades so nobody could see her eyes at the moment. Naruto and Sasuke immediately bowed and said. I'm sorry. It won't happen again. The landlady just huffed and left the building. Geez, they're like Natsu and Gray, now I know where they get it from. Lucy said out loud. Don't get confused, Lucy. Natsu and Gray were like that before we joined Fairy Tail. Naruto said and Lucy was startled by his answer. Sasuke didn't even say anything as he just went back into his place. Well, it's getting late, see you tomorrow, neighbor. Naruto said as he jogged back to his door. Why do I get the feeling that I'm not going to like them being neighbors? Lucy thought. We've got trouble. Urza's backloke shouted and many people in the guild gasped and shivered. Lucy took notice at the reaction to Urza's name and wondered why they were so afraid. Is she really that scary? She asked. As much as I hate to admit it, she's the guild's strongest female wizard. Even Natsu and Gray are afraid of her. Mira said and Lucy was surprised. Natsu and Gray are afraid of her? Is she some kind of monster? Fairy Tail has 5 S-class wizards. Out of the S-class wizards in our guild she's the 4th strongest. The ones being stronger than her are Mystigan, Laxus and Gilderts in that order. Murahin explained. But wait, what about Naruto and Sasuke? It's hard to believe that they're not S-class wizards. Lucy asked. It doesn't matter how strong someone is. It's Fairy Tail's rule that anyone that wants to be S-class must take the S-class wizard exam. Mira explained and Lucy understood the logic in it. She was about to ask another question, but the arrival of a red-haired woman carrying a gigantic horn on her back. When she dropped the horn it caused a tremor in the building. Oh, what's that thing you got there, Urza? A random guild member asked. It's the horn of a monster that I slew on my job, the locals decorated and gave it to me as a gift. Is there a problem? She responded sternly and the guild member cowered in fear, denying that there was any sort of problem. Mira, where is the master? Urza asked. He went to the regular meeting, he left yesterday so he should be back tomorrow. Urza, something really special happened while you were gone. She answered and Urza tilted her head in confusion. What? She asked as she saw a blue cat flying towards her calling her name. The blue cat flew right into the breastplate of her armor. Happy? Wait, then that means Urza said as she turned towards the doors of the guild hall and her eyes widened. Yo Urza. Natsu greeted with his huge smile. There they were, the 4 who left 2 years ago finally returned. Urza felt ecstatic that they were back, she tackled them in a huge hug, making things very awkward for them. Lucy had to pull Urza off of them and save them from any more embarrassment. I know it's been 2 years, but that was a little much, don't you think? Gray asked rhetorically, rubbing the back of his head in discomfort. When did you guys come back? Urza asked. Almost a week ago. When we came, Mira told us that you were out on a job. Naruto said. As much as I'd like to catch up, I'm afraid that there's trouble brewing. The Dark Guild Eisenwald is planning to use some kind of magic called lullaby that was sealed away some time ago. If it was sealed away, it must not be good. Urza said. Lullaby is actually a demon from the books of Zareth. It usually looks like a brown flute with a skull and 3 purple eyes. But its true form is that of a giant demon. Sasuke said, and Urza was surprised. How do you know that? She asked. While we were gone, I spent a lot of time researching Zareth and his creations. Alright, we set out for Eisenwald tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock sharp. Urza said. I'll come under one condition. Natsu said, getting Urza's attention. You have to fight me when we get back. He said, holding up his fist. Urza smiled at him, thinking about how innocent Natsu used to be. His flame has certainly gotten stronger, I can tell even from here, she thought. You've got a deal, Natsu, I acknowledge that you've gotten stronger. Urza said. Wow, Naruto, Sasuke, Natsu, Gray and Urza as a team. This might be the most dangerous team in the entire guild, no, the entire world. Murahin said in amazement. The next morning everyone met up at the train station as planned. Ugh, the train again, can I just walk? Natsu asked and Urza shook her head. The fastest way to get there is by train, so suck it up, Natsu. Urza scolded. Boy Naruto, can't you just use your flying whatever thingy? Natsu asked and Naruto hung his head. I didn't mark the train stations. Well, enough talking, the train's gonna leave without us. Sasuke said, and they all boarded. Everyone was up to their usual shtick while Urza gave them the whole rundown about also she thought Eisenwald was planning. Lullaby, just what are they planning to do with it? Surely it must be evil. Urza said as she clenched her fist in anger. They're planning to use it to kill the guild masters. Sasuke said nonchalantly while staring out the window. Urza was shocked and angry beyond measure. Of all people, they were targeting the guild masters. If they wanted revenge, why don't they target the Magic Council? Not that it makes it any better by doing so. How do you know that? Why are they targeting the guild masters? Urza asked. My side effect tells me so. Sasuke smirking. Side effect? Oh, you do know what universe you're in, right? Urza asked. What are you talking about, Urza-senpai? Gray asked. Urza looked over and paled at the sight of Gray's face. He was making the anime-style duck face, and Lucy was downright lost. He called Urza-senpai. Why? I thought Gray was in the guild longer than any of us here. Lucy said. I'm surrounded by idiots, Urza grumbled while she heard groaning coming from her right side. Seriously though, my side effect tells me what is going to happen. Sasuke said and Urza looked up curiously. How? Are you like a psychic or something? Lucy asked. I can't just see the future when I want to. It seems like I can only see the future when my Rinnegan is active as well, and even still it's pretty random, that's why I call it a side effect. Sasuke said, unconsciously putting his hand on his left eye. What else have you seen since you've realized you had this side effect? Urza questioned. I have seen quite a few things, one being the Eisenwald. I figured that only myself and Naruto are the only people alive with these effects because of the 6 paths, another reason why I call it side effect. He explained. Wait, Naruto has a side effect too? Lucy asked and he nodded. The ability to sense malicious intent. That's Naruto's side effect. Gray said. But the ability to sense malicious intent and that extraordinary sensory abilities he has. It's almost impossible to sneak up on him. But that's only if he is in chakra mode. Sasuke explained. Oh, so that's why you said it probably has something to do with the 6 paths. Gray mused. All this 6 paths and chakra mumbo jumbo is confusing the hell out of me. Lucy complained. Anyway, all we have to do is stop them before they follow through with their plan. Gray said, relaxing in his underwear. Put your clothes back on. Lucy yelled loudly. After about 20 minutes of traveling they arrived at station. They made it to the station safe and sound, however there was something off. Someone was missing. Where's Natsu? Lucy asked. I think he's still on the train. Gray said. He departed. Happy said, waving to the leaving train. Natsu was still on the train, defeated by his motion sickness. Then a guy with pineapple-shaped hair walked up to him and noticed Natsu's guild mark. Oh? What do we have here? A goody 2-shoes from one of those legal guilds. You know what we call you? The person asked and then planted his foot into Natsu's face. Flies, that's what we call you, flies. He yelled and then suddenly the train came to a screeching halt. Hey, you can't go pulling the emergency brake like that. An employee at the train station scolded Urza, who pulled said brake. Sorry, it's for our comrade, please understand. She responded. Natsu released some of his flame power and pushed the man away from him. I don't know who you are and I don't care, but making a mockery of fairy tale earns you a personal beating, pal. Natsu warned. A personal beating? Don't make me laugh, you really think you can beat me? I'm Kageyama, the right-hand man of Erigor, the strongest wizard in Eisenwald. Kageyama boasted. Iron Fist of the Fire Dragon. Natsu charged his flame-covered fist towards Kageyama, who didn't even move. Guard shadow. A bunch of shadow-like tendrils came from the ground and guarded against Natsu's fist. Kageyama has secretly underestimated Natsu, he noticed this when his shadow actually began to crack. However, Natsu didn't continue with the attack, instead he jumped back. Not bad, I didn't use even half my power there, and your magic held up. Natsu boasted and Kageyama grit his teeth. Now I'll finish this. Fire Dragon Row. Natsu didn't get to finish his technique due to the interruption of the train conductor offered the intercom, saying the emergency stop was a false alarm. Oh crap, we gotta settle this later. Natsu said as he grabbed his stuff and jumped out the window as fast as possible. The rest of the gang had rented a magic four-wheeler and were cramping up inside. Urza, you're going too fast, you're going to overload the SE plug. Gray yelled from atop the four-wheeler. I have to move this fast or else we won't catch up to the train. She replied. When they finally caught up to the train, they saw Natsu suddenly jump out of the train window and crashed into Gray. What are you doing, you pink-haired bastard? Gray questioned angrily, rubbing his head in pain. How was I supposed to know you would be there, Ice Princess? Natsu asked rhetorically. Enough. Urza scolded. Yes ma'am. They said simultaneously while sitting on their knees. What happened on the train? I felt some of your magic power before we caught up. Sasuke asked. I was sick on the train and then some bastard kicked me in the face. Said he was Fukuyama from Eisenwald or something. Natsu explained and then Urza slapped him in the face. You fool. They're the ones we're after. Urza scolded as Natsu rubbed his cheek that has a red hand mark on it now. Urza strapped back on the SE plug and everyone piled into the car. I think I'm gonna hurl, Natsu said groggily as his cheeks puffed up. Not on me or not. Lucy screamed as she pushed Natsu back over to Naruto. Oh Lucy. I'm supposed to give you something, but I can't remember what it was. Happy said and Lucy sweat dropped. What was the point in telling me then? After a while of traveling they finally reached Ashibana station where the train looked to be stuck in the station and a really large group of people standing outside the station. The train derailing? How did that happen? Who could have possibly derailed the train? Were some of the murmurs they heard amongst the crowd. Urza was asking employees what the situation was inside but headbutt them because they didn't answer quickly enough. At least give them a chance to speak, Gray said. Does she usually do this? Lucy asked. That's Urza for you. Happy commented. Well, no time to waste here. Gray said as he slung Natsu over his shoulder, Sasuke gripping the back of Naruto's clothes and held him in his hand and they all trekked inside the station. They noticed all the Imperial guards lumped over and defeated. They never stood a chance against a wizard guild. They arrived to train platform and saw the entire Eisenwald guild seemingly waiting for them. Their leader really stood out as he was an extremely tall, lean-built and yet mildly muscular man with silver hair, which is held pointing upwards in spiky strands on top of his head, but hangs down to the left of his face in a distinctive tuft, partially covering it and reaching down to his shoulders. His eyes are dark and he has an elongated face with sharp features and somewhat pointed ears, but seems to lack eyebrows. His eyes are circled by dark lines, and each of them has a simple tattoo right below it, consisting of a pointed line going down vertically, crossed with two more, larger horizontal lines. The upper part of his body is similarly tattooed, but with much larger, intricate and blue-colored motifs, which take on spiraling forms and adorn his shoulders, biceps, pectorals and back. He also dons a torn Japanese-like outfit befitting his role as the Shinigami. He is shown bare-chested, with all of his tattoos visible, and his lower body is covered in different layers of clothing. He sports a long, worn skirt, reminiscent of a hakama, below a darker, shorter cloth, held up by an even lighter and shorter one tied like a belt. He has a black scarf wrapped around his thin neck, with its edges hanging on his back and traditional Jeddah sandals on his feet. His attire is completed by a pair of distinctive dark gloves, each adorned by a light X on the back and by bandages wrapped around his forearms. Look what we have here, it seems the fairy tale flies have shown up. The man said from atop the train. I'm assuming you're Erigor. Urza said pointing towards the man. Indeed I am, and it's too late for you to stop us now. We're going to take away all the rights of others to show how the council took ours away. If we can't have rights no one can. Erigor declared and his guildmates cheered for him. You fiend. That's not going to give you any rights. Just what are you planning to do? Lucy demanded and Erigor chuckled. Think about it. What does this station have? Erigor asked. We already know what your true goal is, so save the act. Sasuke said with a stoic expression and Erigor raised his eyebrow. Oh, Sasuke Uchiha, I never expected to run into you. I'm honored that someone of your strength has been sent in an attempt to stop us. It seems like the orange spark is here as well. But it doesn't matter now, no one can stop us. Erigor said as he floated up to a lamp post. Whoa, did he just fly? Lucy questioned in shock. He uses wind magic, so it gives him the ability to fly. Gray said. Not that it matters to people who will be gone soon. Kageyama said, and Natsu immediately recognized the voice and jumped up when he heard it. That voice, Natsu started. That's the voice of the bastard that kicked me on the train. Natsu yelled and everyone's sweat dropped. So that's what he notices, Lucy mumbled. Well, I don't have any more time to waste on you fairy tale flies. I've got a performance to play. Erigor said as he went to fly down the hallway, but he was cut off by a wall of ice. Going somewhere? Gray asked, staring Erigor dead in the face. Erigor couldn't believe what just happened. He got cut off by a fly from one of those legitimate guilds. He got cut off by a wizard who uses maker magic, known as some of the slowest wizards in the magic community. What incredible speed. Just what kind of training have they been under the past 2 years? Urza thought. Sasuke sat on the floor crossing his legs and everyone else looked at him confused. Look at the amount of enemies we have to face, this isn't the time to relax. Urza scolded and Sasuke shrugged his shoulders. Gray, this shouldn't be a problem for you, should it? Sasuke asked. Gray stood in his signature ice make stance and smirked. Not at all. He said as his magic energy began to flow in his hands. Ice make. Geyser. A giant geyser of ice erupted from the ground like a miniature mountain of sorts. It covered nearly the entire area of the train platform, effectively dismantling the train as well. Most of the Eisenwald members were taken out from this one attack. Wow, he took out so many people with one attack. Lucy said, gazing at the miniature ice mountain. Erigor was absolutely livid, this nobody just took out nearly all of his guild members with a single attack. If I hadn't moved out the way I would have been a goner myself. He thought, then he was forced to dodge many spikes coming from the ice geyser, a few of them barely nicking him on his bare upper body. Boy, Gray, you're taking too long. Natsu called out, with Gray developing a mark of frustration. Shouting out fine, he created 2 long swords made of ice. You guys mind cleaning up the rest of the stragglers that I didn't get? Gray asked, and the 2 girls nodded. The Eisenwald members faced the members of Fairy Tail. Wait a second, that guy looks familiar. Sasuke said, narrowing his eyes at Kageyama. Naruto, still dazed from motion sickness, saw the blurry image of Kageyama. All he could make out was his pineapple-shaped hair and just said the first thing that came to his mind. Shikamaru? Naruto asked. What are you doing here? My name isn't Shika whatever, it's Kageyama. The Shikamaru lookalike declared. He does look like Shikamaru, and if he's the one who attacked Natsu, he also used shadows. Sasuke thought. I wonder if Shikamaru is one of his ancestors. Sasuke, Happy, Urza, a scared Lucy, and Naruto were face to face with quite a few members of the Eisenwald Guild. There was a pretty heavy tension in the air, but the ones feeling the most pressure were the members of Eisenwald. Even with our numbers, it'll be impossible to defeat them. Even Urza Scarlet is here. The only way we can defeat them is to force them into an ultimatum using the weakest link to our advantage. That would be our best bet, to attack the blonde girl. An Eisenwald member with whiskers named Bayard thought as he turned his attention towards Lucy. We also need to strike before the orange spark has a chance to recover. All members of Eisenwald follow my lead. Bayard ordered as he stretched his hand outward and a magic circle appeared in front of his palms. All of the Eisenwald members complied and followed Bayard's actions and readied for battle. The leader of this force quickly aimed his magic circle at Lucy and everyone followed suit, understanding what Bayard was trying to accomplish. Why me? Lucy cried out as she did her best to shield herself by crossing her arms in front of her and closed her eyes, preparing for the worst. Feeling the pressure of magic colliding but not on her skin or anything, she opened her eyes. Lucy was a bit taken back from what was in front of her. She saw what seemed like a purple aura surrounding her. So you're targeting Lucy as a way to gain leverage, I see. Eisenwald truly is a cowardly guild. I will wipe you all out myself. Sasuke said as he let his Susanoo disappear. Don't kill any of. Is he really that strong to beat them all without using any magic? Lucy asked. No way, that one guy can't handle all of us without magic, let's get him, Bayard declared, and Eisenwald charged towards him. In the span of a single moment, Sasuke appeared behind the entire crowd of wizards. The second his sword sheathed entirely, all of the Eisenwald members went down. Gray regrouped with them, his ice sword disintegrating, leaving behind Erigor's defeated body behind. Wow, I didn't even see what happened just now. Lucy said. I'm quite impressed, Gray. You were able to defeat Erigor all by yourself. Well, he's always been like that. Naruto said. Now you're going to tell me where you got that flute from? Sasuke ordered. Bayard smiled confidently and said, I'll never talk. Sasuke activated his Sharingan and looked down on him in the most intimidating face he could make. I didn't ask if you would talk. I asked where you got it from. Sasuke said sternly. Whoa, he's kind of scary. Lucy said. That's Sasuke for you. All you humans are weak. I'll annihilate you all myself. At the guild masters meeting, all of the masters present were just sitting around eating food, drinking and enjoying themselves. You know, Makarov, the council is worried about your guild, they're too destructive. Master Bob said. Yeah, they might end up destroying an entire city one day. Master of Quattro Cerber said. I don't know what you're talking about. Makarov said with a slight slur in his voice. Then a bird carrying an envelope and calling out Master Makarov. He took the envelope from the bird and thanked it for the delivery. He placed his pointer on the envelope and a green magic circle appeared and a holographic projection of Marahin appeared. What do you think about our poster girl, boys? Isn't she great? Makarov boasted. Master, I thought I should report this, I don't know if it's good news or bad news. Natsu, Gray, Urza, Naruto and Sasuke formed a team together. She said, and Makarov paled intensely and his hair started to fall off his head. Looks like the council has a right to be worried. Goldmine said. Sasuke alone could destroy an entire city. With those 5 together they could probably destroy an entire island. Makarov yelled. All you humans are weak. I'll annihilate you all myself. A voice boomed from within the train station. Suddenly a large brown creature erupted from the lullaby flute. Citizens fled from the station and the city in fear of the massive creature, as it was larger than the station itself. When the creature came to be, the train station was nothing but rubble at that point. The fairy tale team stared at the giant creature while it stood there in all its glory. So this is Lullaby's true form. Sasuke said as he took in the demon's form. We have to protect the people of this town. Please help me evacuate them. Lucy cried out. That won't be necessary. Naruto said, and the women looked at him confused. I'm going to take this guy down in one shot. He continued. A mere human taking me down in one shot, that's a riot. I'm going to kill you. Just F. Lullaby started but was immediately silenced by being completely split in two in a vertical manner. Urza, Lucy and Lullaby were in utter shock at what just happened. Lullaby was split in two by a massive shuriken made of wind, that same shuriken coming back towards him. Once it reached him, the demon was enveloped in a huge explosion. Too bad for you. I'm no mere human. Naruto said with a smirk on his face as Lullaby screamed in terror. I'm the #1 hyperactive knucklehead ninja, Naruto Uzumaki. He declared, and everyone sweat dropped. The explosion finally settled and the dust was clearing. Honestly, how could someone like that really be so strong? Urza thought as she looked at the side of what happened. Not even a single trace of Lullaby was left. There was just a gigantic pit where the monster used to be. Who would have thought that a goofball like him would be strong enough to destroy a demon from the books of Zeref with no effort? Lucy asked. You have no idea. Sasuke said. It's good that you defeated Lullaby and all, but what are we going to do about that? Gray asked, referring to all the rubble and property damage caused by this fight. We'll figure it out later, but we seriously need to get the heck out of here before the council comes. Natsu exclaimed as he grabbed Lucy's hand and was about to make a run for it. However, unfortunately for them, it was too late. They were all surrounded by the Magic Council. Hold it right there. The Magic Council captain ordered. No worries guys, everyone just grab onto me. Naruto said, and everyone complied while Lucy was a bit hesitant. Wait, what are you about to do? Lucy asked. Just trust me, okay? Naruto said with a reassuring voice, and she nodded. She grabbed onto him, and the very moment she did, they all vanished. The Magic Council was completely dumbfounded at what just happened. Where did they go? The captain asked, and his squad had no answer. Back in the Fairy Tale Guild, there was an unusual quiet in the guild that day. Of course, with the louder members being gone for the time being, it certainly seemed like a much more civilized guild than when they are there. So what do you think they'll destroy this time? Kana asked Marahin, cradling her barrel of booze. It depends, but I don't think they'll destroy more than a building or two. She replied, and Kana laughed out loud. You sure have a lot of faith in those idiots. Well, they are with Urza and Lucy, so surely they must be kept in check to some extent. Mira answered. By the way, where did you get that thing around your neck? Kana asked, referring to the necklace that Mira was sporting now. It was a 3-pronged kunai with a light orange handle and Shiki formula written on it. She held it up slightly above her breast, staring at before answering, oh this. Naruto gave it to me. Suddenly the kunai began to glow, surprising both girls. Then in that same instant, out popped the group who went to take on Eisenwald. Woohoo, we're back in no time flat. Happy exclaimed as he and Natsu high-fived each other. Well, how did we get here so fast? Lucy asked while frantically looking around the guild. Because of this, I assume? Marahin said, holding up the special kunai. Oh, you turned it into a necklace. That's awesome. Naruto complimented. But anyway, to explain what just happened, I used a technique called the Flying Thunder God. It allows me to be able to instantly move to wherever I place these markings. He explained while holding up a kunai to show everyone. That must have took a long time for you to create. That's a really useful technique, is there any weaknesses to it? Urza asked and Naruto shook his head. The only weakness is probably the jutsu itself. I can only teleport to where the marks are, so if someone could figure out where I would jump to, I'll be at a disadvantage. Other than that, there's no limitations for how far I can warp. Just can't jump through dimensions or anything like that. He explained. Anyway, you guys came back on such a short notice, did something happen? Kana asked. Yeah, this one destroyed the train station, so no trains could run anyway. Urza said, glaring at Naruto who rubbed the back of his head sheepishly before coming to a realization. Hey, he destroyed it first. Naruto declared while pointing towards Gray who was about to argue, but got cut off by Natsu. You should have seen it. Naruto brought down this giant monster in one attack and left a huge crater in the station. Natsu said ecstatically, happy adding in sound effects while he acted out the explosions. Oh, I bet the master would love to hear that story. Murahin said, and Natsu smirked with an evil gleam in his eye directed at Naruto. Naruto flinched and his eyes became wide as dinner plates. Not so nice when someone's blaming you for something, is it? Natsu thought. Harma she be a cruel mistress. Gray said. You think he's still mad about what happened with Altair? Sasuke whispered to Naruto, who was paralyzed by the scene. Would you please not tell the master about that please? Naruto asked, almost begged everyone. The council already knows about what you did, there's not even a point in trying to hide it. Urza said sternly and Naruto hung his head in shame. I knew I should have just let someone else do it, Naruto mumbled as he looked at the contents of his wallet. Well, I'm going to go home to rest up, I'll see all of you tomorrow. Natsu said as he ran out of the guild with Happy in tow. Rest up? Rest up for what? Naruto asked. Natsu and Urza are going to fight tomorrow, don't tell me you forgot already. Sasuke responded and Naruto rubbed the back of his head in embarrassment. Oh yeah, I forgot. What if Naruto used Susanoo in Fairy Tail, and thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys next video.